Good evening.
Okay.
Welcome to the Sunday Pub. Um, I have Mike with me. Mike is a viewer of the channel.
Hello,
Um,
everyone.
your first time joining, which is cool. Mike
Yeah.
is, if I remember correctly, not only Greek, but you are in Greece, are you not?
Yeah,
Yes?
I'm Greek. I'm Greek, but I
And, and you're in Greece as well.
yeah, I live in Greece. That's true.
Yeah, yeah, cool. Where in Greece are you?
Western part of Greece, near most of you should know Corfu or Lefkas or
Yeah,
Zakynthos. Yeah, it's along the western coast. I mean, if you're a history buff, then you'll know Actium by Mark Antony and Cleopatra and Julius and Octavian.
I'm not that much of a history buff myself, but I am a big traveler, and I've been to Corfu. So I've
Yeah,
been
it's
in the area somewhere there. Yeah.
100. I live 100 miles south of Corfu, approximately.
Okay. Okay, cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Hello, Jerome. Jerome is in the chat. A few other people in the chat that haven't outed themselves yet. I I'm wearing my bathrobe, um, which someone may
Mm.
notice because I'm a bit sick. I've
Oh,
been going. Yeah, it's not too serious, but it sounds like my microphone is off.
I can
Really?
hear you.
Okay.
I can hear you loud and clear.
Ah, okay. Let me just check that it's
Mm.
using the right. No, it's not.
This should probably be better.
Oh,
Uh,
definitely.
yeah. For some reason, StreamYard had decided to use
Battery 100%.
my portable speaker as a microphone.
Ah,
The
dear.
speaker was set
Oh,
as
dear.
my mic, which is kind of stupid. This is my mic, Blue Yeti. So yeah, that's better. Hey,
Better.
Rogue. Rogue is also a very loyal Sunday Pub participant. It's a thing that a lot of people. I realized the idea of Sunday Pub was totally natural to me, and it possibly is to Rogue as well because he's Irish. I know it's a British, Irish, and by extension Australian thing. You always go to the pub on Sunday. And a lot of pubs have really good Sunday meals as well. They have like a roast and really good vegetables and stuff like that. So it was pretty normal. I had a kind of a regular thing where I met friends at the pub, or you go out with your family to the pub and have a meal in the afternoon and the evening, that kind of thing. So that was where I got the idea for just having a bit of a bookish hangout on Sunday afternoons. Depending on time zones, please feel free to drink. I have a new
Ooh,
Bridge
looks
Burners
great.
mug for
Yeah,
anyone
the
who
bridge
is
burners.
into Malazan. First in, last out. I found a guy. If anyone's in Europe, I can send you the link if you like. I found a guy who is in Poland, and he makes a whole bunch of different fan kinds of things. And there isn't much fan Malazan stuff in the world at all. So when I found him, and he has a Bridge Burners t-shirt, which is an original design. He has a Bone Hunters t-shirt, and he has Bridge Burners mugs. So I've got some wine in my first in, last out mug. Everybody else feel free to drink as well. Cheers.
Cheers.
I'm a little sick. I'm a little exhausted as well because I had a project this weekend. I built a new bookshelf.
Ooh.
Not the one behind me. A carpenter, a professional, built that one. But I built a new IKEA bookshelf and then resorted all my books all over the place. Rogue, that is That is a common assumption, but I didn't want to assume. I have probably my very best Irish friend is actually an alcoholic, but he hasn't drunk anything in 10 or more years. So he's an under control alcoholic, but he kind of used to live in the pub. So yeah, that was not what I was going to say. Daniel is at work. What are you doing at work on a Sunday, Daniel? Why are you doing that? That's a bad idea.
Overtime, maybe.
Overtime, I guess. Then it can be worth it because you're earning some money.
Yeah.
But let me just take a moment to send Dan a link. Dan, the black and blue collar reader, is going to join us, but he's having link problems. Can you hear my cat Fitz screaming in the background?
Yep.
Fitz has this thing. No, actually, Vero, not a Billy bookcase. I don't do Billy. I'm old enough that I had my, 20 years of Billy bookcases when I was in university and I was much younger. And as soon as I could afford it, I upgraded my bookcases. It's still IKEA, but it's like the next, class up from Billy. Costs more, looks better, more stable, lasts longer, all that kind of stuff. Boom. Dan, the man who apparently can't hear us, or...
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Oh, you can. Okay. Yeah, you just looked like you were off somewhere else.
I'm kind of off kilter here.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah.
Quite.
That's perfect for the type of person I am. Just a little
twisted. Slightly. We can all just sit like this all evening.
Make me feel at home, right?
Yeah. It's not just you, Dan. We're all a little crooked. You are looking pretty hot, my man.
Yeah, I got my post seasonal depression trim finally. I don't know if you guys saw me in my last couple of videos. I was looking fucking rough, man.
You were looking a bit shaggy. That's true.
Yeah.
You're oh, you might appreciate this. You were late, so you didn't see it.
Bridge Burner's mug. I was listening, and I'm very jealous, to be honest.
Yeah.
I am at the end of Memories of Ice.
All right.
That final chapter that's like 700 pages. And things are going down, and I'm an adult that needs to go to bed. And with chapters that long, I was just like, I can't go to bed now. I gotta find out what happens. Did this really happen? It's just crazy. I wish he would cut the chapters down a little bit.
It's interesting though. I mean, it's one of the only series, and I mean we're doing pretty good. We're only at 8.5 minutes, and we've already got Malazan happening.
It had to be said.
Of course. It's actually I find it kind of cool. I mean, I understand chapters. Like I always warn people. I'm like, when you get to, I think it's chapter 7 of Memories of Ice, where they're at Yucatan, like the siege of Yucatan.
The siege.
Yeah, I always tell people when you get to chapter 7, don't start the chapter if it's too late in the evening, right? Unless you're happy to stay up as long as you want, because I started it at like 11:30 or 12, and I could not. That one chapter is so long; it's like 130 pages or something, and it's so exciting.
Yeah,
I could not stop.
Down.
I was not able to stop until I knew what was going on with the Bone Hunters. Maybe it's actually in the Bone Hunters, not Memories of Ice. I'm really bad at remembering exactly which book what's in. Yeah, Bone Hunters. Yeah, exactly. Everyone's telling me I'm an idiot. Thank you very much. Yeah, Exactly. No, it's in Bone Hunters. And when you get to that chapter, you're going to be in it until you're done with that chapter.
Yeah, well,
or you're dead.
these two battles that go on in Memories of Ice are quite in depth and you're with different people in different times, and it's just, and then you get to a part and you're just like, did that happen? Did that really happen? No, that didn't happen. And with Erickson, he's the author that's like, you need to trust me. So I'm just like, all right, so maybe that didn't happen, and if I keep reading along, he'll shock me. It's just, I love his writing. I love how he does it. But you need absolute quiet, and that's a commodity around my house. And you just really need to be into that book, and it's amazing. I was asked, I am taking 6 months to read Memories of Ice, and I was asked, how can you remember this stuff? And it's Erickson's writing that is just so descriptive. You really get a feel for the characters, and I don't really forget everything that's going on. And when I finally am in that mood and I get that time and I get to sit down, I'm just right back where I left off, like I never left.
Tell me, Dan, because I'm really curious. If you can hint at it without spoilers, what is it that happened that you think didn't actually happen?
It has to do, it has to do with my man. I'm going to say this and hopefully people will get it. It has to do with my man, Drambuie Dan.
Okay. Yeah,
do you understand? You get what I'm saying?
Of course, I totally get what you're saying.
You don't get it?
I do. I totally do. I think anyone who's read the books will get it. And yeah, that happened.
Oh, really? And his main squeeze. I'm right there and kind of like past it, reading like, come on, Eric, tell me it was somebody else. You know what I mean? I don't want to go too much in, but yes.
I'm not gonna spoil anything for you, but I mean, you've already read the scene.
Yes, I did. I did.
Yeah, at this point, you can just assume that yes, that happened.
Okay. Yeah, I was, but when it happened, you don't want it. Erickson is that person that fucks with your emotions.
Yeah.
And so
if he had been in the room with me while I was reading that, I would have punched him.
And we had Tattersail in Gardens of the Moon, right? And her whole story arc kind of, had me feeling that way about this person.
Yeah, I mean it's Malazan, and without any kind of spoilers, I can say you can almost always assume that you haven't seen the last of a character in Malazan.
Yes.
But if you see them again, they will not be the character that you lost or left, right? It's I did a video about that because I was thinking about it a lot while I was reading it. I did a video on death and rebirth in Malazan because like Erickson has no problem killing characters you would rather he didn't kill, but he also then has no problem bringing them back. But when they're brought back, they have paid a price. They are changed.
Yes, there is always a change to everyone that I'm. Yeah, even in the 3 books that I've read. Yes, exactly. And I think an interesting, subtopic on Malazan and some of these other fantasy books is also like immortality would be a good, kind of subject to look at. We have. Many people in that book that are immortal and their experiences and how this immortality affected them. And we do have that in other stories. And I think it's just an interesting subtopic that could probably be discussed. I believe Laura from
most people,
Fantasy Watch did a great video about immortality in fantasy.
For most people in Malazan, immortality is pretty damn expensive. It hasn't done the Taistandi much good, and
Erickson brings that up, is that a lot of these is consequences.
Yeah.
And we, before, maybe not before Erickson, but Erickson is giving us reality within a military setting, in a fantasy setting, in my opinion. Like, you have these fantasy stories that the hero always wins, and there really isn't any consequences for the things they've had to do, and the characters, live happily ever after, and that is not the case within that series. It is very, do not love a character too much.
No, no, and don't get attached to hating a character either. I mean, that's the thing I'm maddest at Steve about is there are so many. There's one character earlier than Memories of Ice who I hated, and he got what he deserved, and that was it. It was a nice, simple relationship with that character. But there are so many characters that I've decided, okay, this guy needs to be killed, and they don't get killed. And Erickson explains them to you, and then you're like, yeah, okay, maybe I hate them a bit less now. I want to hate them, but I just can't do it anymore. Anyway, take a moment to say hello to people. Pete's here. Hi, Pete.
Hey,
Hi,
Pete.
Heidi. Has anyone read Blackwing by Ed McDonald?
It's on my I have the audiobook. It's on my TBR. I know there are tattoos that transform within that, I believe. Yeah, it's
Okay,
a very
like magic
interesting magic
tattoos.
system.
Okay.
Dark as well.
Evie, you are late, as you said. We already discussed Dan's hot new look. I mean, look at his mustache. I
Yeah,
can't
I'm
do that with a
doing the
mustache.
whole curl thing.
I
I'm
can't
going
even
with the
begin to
curl.
do that.
Yeah,
I can't even begin
I
to do
actually
that.
went to my barber this time.
My I always say that my beard is basically pubic hair on my face. It
Yeah.
just grows out in every direction. Just keeping it going downwards is a victory.
Yeah, this is a lot
Britton
of
is
shaping.
here.
It's responsibility in the morning that I didn't want, but I'm gonna try
I don't.
to keep on top of it.
I don't bother.
Hey,
Britton is
Britton.
here. Bex is here. I hope you're
Bex,
doing
how you
better
doing?
today, Bex. Good to see you. John is here. Yeah, basically the regulars. Oh, Rogue is reading Ship of Magic. Wow, you're in for some fun, my friend. That is such a good series. I mean, I don't like, if anyone asked me to rank Realm of the Otherlings books, I would tell them to fuck off because I'm not doing that. But Ship of Magic, because it's completely different. Yeah, I don't think you can compare it to Farseer or 20 Man or anything else because they're all fits and they're all first person. And Live Ships is just, without comparing it to anything else in Realm of the Otherlings, it's just such an amazing trilogy. It's so good. It's hard to put down. Really, really good. Vero is getting onto Live Ships in January. Yeah, oh man, it's so damn good. Uh-oh. Spear cuts through water news. Evie is doing a chat with Sarah Reeds.
Oh,
Dan's already got his spear ready. I've got, wait a sec, where is it? I just reorganized my shelf today, which is why I'm sitting over here, which I usually don't. Where did I put it?
I am trying to get this video out
Oh, it's
on
one up further. Yeah.
the spear that cuts through water now, and I just want it to be good. I just wish I could get on and just start talking and not try to make it a decent video, but I just recorded like the whole thing where I don't stop. I just keep talking. And it's not downloading to my computer. But I had this cool intro. I love doing intros. That's like my favorite thing, where I
do fun
what
intros.
I do what Lulla does in the beginning, and I blow smoke in you guys, and you end up in the inverted theater. I can't. I just want to give it to you guys for the intro. But yeah, I've been working on the video like all day. I just haven't found any quiet time. I finally got in I finally did it decently, and now it's corrupted. But I'll get it out.
I
soon.
don't really remember my review of Spear. I don't think it had a whole lot of structure or anything in it. It was just me
You
going,
had
"Oh my god, this
what
is
it
really, really
has, and
awesome."
then you had
Well, I always have what's it got. Yeah.
yeah, what's it got, but then you had writing, and it's tough because there's so much to really talk
Yeah.
about there. And I see the structure of that video. You had like your intro, and in the bottom it says writing for most of it, and you're just kind of you really tell the story excellent. You know, you explain it very
It's what
well, how layered, how structured.
in a
You know,
way, it's what the book's about. You know, a lot of what the book is about is how the book is written. You know, like the experience of reading the book has so much to do with the way it's written. And it's so, I mean, I kept thinking, you know, those like Chinese acrobats that have like sticks, and on the stick is a spinning plate, and they're, you know, I kept thinking, okay, Jimenez is doing that with the writing. And I'm just waiting for the plates to drop, you know, and smash, and they never do. He just keeps adding more
excellent
plates,
way to put it.
and he never dropped them, you know, all the way through the whole book. It's just, wow.
Yeah, it's like
I'm so looking forward to
story.
reading it again.
It's like a story within a story that tells a story about another story within that fucking story. It's just so amazingly layered, and he fucking pulls it off, man. And
Yeah.
it has
It
this,
sounds like I was worried when I was doing my review, because I counted them. I went through the deepest I could find in the book, and it's 6 story in a story. You know, it's like a story and 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 a story, and 6 layers. And I really thought, okay, if I tell someone that in a video, most people are going to tell me to get fucked, and they're never going to read it. You know, like that doesn't sound good, but he does it so well. A beautifully written love story as well. Yeah,
it's
like
it's a camaraderie story, Evie. It's not a love story. It's a
no,
story
it's totally a love
about
story, and it's a gay love story. So if you're someone who's listening and you can't deal with a gay love story, first of all, move into the 21st century, wake the fuck up, and it's awesome. It's so good. I mean, I've looked for one, but I'm pretty sure I don't have a single gay bone in my body. But I loved that story.
It's a love story to the
To its
blade
dented
bone.
bone. Yeah.
Now, that's why. So when
Ouch.
I started saying it's a story about companionship, do you remember in the book where the relatives are fighting about what the story is, whether it's a love
Yeah.
story, and the father's like, no, it's a companionship story about camaraderie. That's why I said that. I know
Yeah.
it's a love story, but there is a part where
Yeah.
there's something in this for everyone, in my
Yeah.
opinion. I just think that this book was just touched on everything, and just was my flavor, man. When I go to the ice cream
Yeah.
shop, I'm ordering 2 scoops of Spear that cuts through water. It's that good.
Yeah.
Good, that's nice to hear. But and
It's
if you
really
don't
good.
worry about your reviews, mine are far worse. But you know, it's fun doing it for the about 10 people that watch them. And if you want to, this thing about layers, it reminds me of an older book, not fantasy fiction. I think it goes by the title "The Manuscript Found in Saragossa" by Jan Pochoki. And it's an old book. I don't remember how. And it was
I've heard of
layers.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
more than 20 stories within stories. But he also managed to pull it off, and it was great.
I don't know why Britain just named the book, but did someone miss that? Anyway, doesn't matter. Yeah. I was actually just looking today, because yesterday was my bookshelf building day, and today was my, okay, now that I have space because I have a new bookshelf, I have to reorganize all my books. And one of the main goals was I wanted to get face out more books on the shelf that is my background. And one of them, of course, is up there.
There it is.
The Spear Cuts Through Water. It's so good. And I was also looking today on Amazon. I was looking for a paperback because I was like, you know, I'm gonna read this again multiple times. And I don't necessarily want to beat up the lovely hardback that Evie sent me. So Evie sent me the other
Speaking
book
of,
as well, The Vanished Birds.
Evie, if you're still in the chat, have you read Something Wicked This Way Comes? Please let me know.
Oh,
If you
It's so
haven't,
good.
I would love to return the favor. If that's not a book you don't think you'd like, you just let me know. But if
It's
you
so
haven't read
good.
that, I'd like to get that to you.
Yeah, man, it's good. The manuscript found in Zaragoza. Yeah. Evie just found it.
oh,
I
okay,
also
yeah.
I heard of it somewhere, and it sounded like totally the kind of weirdness I'd be into.
Yeah,
But I haven't read it.
it's almost as good as fantasy.
Okay. Yeah, Evie recently sent me. I was just talking about it. I just today filmed my monthly wrap up for November for the second time, and was cutting it just before we got on, and mentioned Evie. I have to thank Evie in lots of videos. She sent me Simon Jimenez's first book, The Vanished Birds.
Vanished Birds.
And although I must say, I'm pretty sure the only reason Evie sent it to me was so that I would feel better, because everything else she sent me was toys for my cat. I think she just wanted to send Fitz some toys. And then she was like, oh, I'll throw in a book so Matt doesn't feel left out.
Yeah, that one wasn't really I wouldn't say that's a book to cheer you up. That's definitely one that's a little more thematically rich and excellent book. Excellent writing. Not as, not action packed like The Spear That Cuts Through Water, but still an amazing book.
She says she hasn't read Something Wicked This Way Comes, which she must do. The
All right.
October Country? You mean 30 days in the what's it called? No, that's Zelazny. I actually just to stand up briefly. If you've watched my recent videos, you already know this, but I love it, so I just wanted to show off.
Oh
Something
my
Wicked This
God,
Way
where'd you
Comes.
get that?
Folio Society. Yeah.
Oh
It's
my!
and
I
it's
bought
got
a paperback for
excellent,
13.
excellent.
This was the first book that I read digitally. Oh wow!
and it's got these
Look at
red and
that.
yellow and black illustrations all through it. It's gorgeous. And it's so fucking yellow.
Oh, it's
but
good. I love that palette.
It's
That color palette.
totally appropriate for the subject matter, considering it's about a carnival. A messy carnival, as you can
Love
see.
that. That is
Oh,
so
nice,
good.
Isn't it gorgeous?
Wow.
I'm really happy with
Excellent,
that.
excellent.
Check one of my recent videos. I went overboard, and I got where is it? Up here is June and June Messiah from Folio Society.
Ooh.
Next to it, not face out, is The Princess Bride from Folio Society, which I just love. And then I got this one as well. So that's my
Jerome. There's no such thing as too much yellow.
Generally, I would
Kidding.
agree with
There is.
Jerome. I would totally agree with Jerome. But when I unpacked it, knowing the subject matter, knowing the book, I was like, yes, this is so perfect.
Mm-hmm.
It's really good. You need to read it, Evie. It's really awesome.
Yeah,
do not stop Dan from sending it to you.
No, I picked a cool cover with the horse on it, and I was like, dude, if I need to get Evie something, this has to be it, because the horse is on the cover. It's a beautiful cover. I bought it for myself, but I'm thinking I need to send it on over to Evie as well. This will be the first book that I read did an ebook of, that I was like, this was so good that I'm gonna buy the book to put on my shelf, because that's where I'm at.
My
I don't.
paperback of it is just boring. It's
Yeah, I
like
don't
it's
like
a
that cover.
carousel,
I
whatever.
want to find the cover for you guys that
It's
I got.
really actually
I'll show you.
pretty
I think
garbage.
this cover is
but
beautiful. The one that I
the
picked
Folio
up.
Society version edition makes up for it. That's really, really nice.
Yeah.
Looks like I just took a shower or was in a karate competition with Cobra Kai. No, I'm pretty sure that Cobra Kai does not wear bathrobes when they are in their karate competitions. I am wearing a bathrobe. I'm wearing a ratty old bathrobe even, because I've been every day for the last 4 days. I've gone to bed thinking, okay, tomorrow I'm going to be like really fucking sick. And it hasn't really happened. I haven't really gotten really sick, but I've been feeling like I'm getting sick for like 4 days. So it's really, I'm over it. My face is
So
stuffed
this
up.
right here is the
yeah.
cover that I got for it.
Oh yeah. That one's
Oh.
hot. That one's hot. Yeah.
Yeah, so that one's coming to me.
Nice.
I really love that cover there. Real colorful. Yeah, and I thought, I think we should all be talking about Ray Bradbury a little more, folks.
Oh yeah. Have you read
Fahrenheit 451 and
Fahrenheit
now
451? Dandelion
Well-
Wine is also pretty cool.
What? I'm sorry, which one did you
The
like from
classic,
him as
I'd
well?
say.
Dandelion Wine.
Mhm.
All right, so because I have Illustrated Man, I'm gonna read.
Illustrated Man is also cool.
I believe that's the next book. So I've read Fahrenheit 451, which is exceptional.
Yeah.
Also, the Something Wicked This Way Comes, which was another one that was exceptionally written. And now he's on my list as an author that I need to dive more into.
Yeah, he the man. Bradbury is pretty damn good. Heidi says I need to wear my Gondor sweatshirt for Sunday chats. I am wearing my Sauron t-shirt at least. I have to stand up for you actually be able to see it, but
All right,
underneath the bathrobe I've got Sauron. So
Matt, it's Roboclock over here too. I'll be right back.
oh yeah, Martian Chronicles also.
Martian
yeah.
Chronicles.
Yeah. Classic.
Yeah.
Totally classic. I just got a message from someone. Evie. Raf is here. Welcome, Raf.
Hey, I heard
Sunday
there's a
pub.
pub going on.
Yeah. If anyone should be in the pub right now, it's you.
Cheers.
I've never actually seen you
Cheers.
without a beer in your hand, I think.
It does happen. I'm sorry I'm late. I had to
no worries.
I'm coming back. It's been a stressful day. I went to visit my family because my sister and her husband and my niece are flying back to a very troubled country indeed tomorrow, and I figured I'd better hang out with them before they do that.
Which one?
Israel.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I told you, very troubled indeed.
Yeah, not a great place to be right now.
Yeah, but they came to Germany like second week of October, third week of October, right after the 7th. But they they have to go back. Her maternity leave ends next week, and
Right.
and stuff.
Yeah.
So they're going back there, and I figured I better go and meet them before they leave. And then I had to do the
Fair
Discworld read along thing that I'm always doing.
Fair enough.
So I talked about football.
Evie asked me a question. We will, generally, Evie, this goes for
2 hours.
a couple hours. So, 11-ish my time, an hour and a half from now, probably we'll cut off. So as you feel, she was wondering whether she should join and has
yes.
another commitment and whatever. So up to you, Evie. It would be cool.
But the answer is definitely yes.
Always. Yes.
We're positive,
It's like
guys.
improv theater. You have to say yes and.
Yeah. Briton I'm outing everyone who is writing me messages privately on Discord.
Britain is some oaky dude, right?
Yes, Britain. I don't invite people on my show. That's the thing. You're welcome to join. The whole idea.
I can send Britain the link in a second. If
it's actually in. If you go to, I mean, this is I always explain this because I want people to know and I want people to join who feel like joining. Every Friday or Saturday, I post the link to join and the link to watch
in your channel,
my channel
on the Grimoire Discord.
Exactly. So just go there and you're welcome to join.
Mm-hmm. I opened the old link in that one. That's where I was the first couple minutes.
Yeah, the link changes every week.
Okay.
Yeah,
naturally
for StreamYard. Yeah, of course it has to.
Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, I thought I'll pop by for tonight because I don't think I won't be able to join next week because I'll be on a bus somewhere between the arse end of Croatia and Frankfurt.
Goodness, are you going to a heavy metal concert?
No, I'm not. I'm going to a conference about history and stuff, and I'll be talking about the change in fiction about war from throughout the 20th century and how it moves into the surreal and beyond that into fantasy because certain things cannot be expressed in realistic fiction. So I'll be talking about stuff like Slaughterhouse 5 and the things they carried and stuff like that.
Right, things they carried is amazing.
I know it's amazing. It's powerful. Yeah. Although. Yeah, so I'll talk about how stuff changed from say World War I fiction like Storm of Steel and Nothing New at the Western Front.
All Quiet.
All Quiet. All Quiet. The German one is Im Westen nichts Neues, which would be nothing new. But All Quiet on the Western Front, and how that changes to like World War II fiction with stuff like say Slaughterhouse 5, for example. And how it kind of becomes more and more surreal over time because realist fiction is not able to actually explain or describe what happens in war, which is also parallels something that I found really interesting. When you go to Walter Benjamin makes an incredibly important point in the artwork in the Age of Mechanical Reproduction in 1936 that writing has become something very different from like earlier times. When you leave people writing stories in the 19th century or 18th century, even people writing about war, are people with the privilege to write and the privilege to actually afford the materials of writing. But that changes in the 20th century. So the people that write their stuff from World War I and World War II are no longer just officers. They are no longer just the elite. And that changes the perspective on war.
The grunts start telling their story.
And that changes the perspective fundamentally to what we get before that. And I think all of that leads to something where a lot of the things that we see in war fiction in the 19th century is shifted to fantasy, because there you can still have that officer's perspective, the hero's perspective. And
although you've also got your Glenn Cooks and your Steven Eriksons who are writing about the guys in the mud.
Yeah, exactly. But so there's like both sides of this happening. But there's an important aspect that certain forms of the experience of war, of that level of violence, go beyond like our human experience, or at least the vocabulary we have for like a realistic human experience. So it has to be told in fantasy. It has to be told in science fiction. And there's some really interesting quotes, both in Vonnegut in Slaughterhouse 5 and Tim O'Brien, the things they carry, where you can actually see author reflecting on that. And that's kind of what I'm looking at the moment.
Heidi says, "Did you read Matterhorn?"
I have not. I've also never climbed that fucking mountain. I've been close to it, though.
There are a lot of mountains we have all not climbed, I think.
That is true.
I've been within sight of Himalayan of the Everest base camp, the first base camp.
That's nice.
That's as close as I ever got to climbing that, because you have to be fucking insane to climb that shit. Like anything that you need oxygen to climb seems kind of crazy to me.
Well, let's not forget there's some people for them that's like first floor, right?
Yeah, I mean, I know a guy actually. I know a Mexican friend of mine has climbed Everest and has videos and pictures from the top and all of that. And he tells the story of it, and it's an amazing thing to even think about. First of all, he said like everybody pretty much has Sherpas, who are the local people, and they do the whole climb without modern gear and without oxygen. And it for them it's like, so what? They carry your gear as you go up, and they haven't got oxygen, they haven't got North Face jackets or hiking boots or any of that kind of stuff. They're just dudes, and they're all quite small, and they're carrying these huge packs, and they don't care, no problem. And they have actually, I read a study, they have actually evolved that their lungs process oxygen differently than the rest of the world. They process oxygen in such a way that they get every bit out of it, which our lungs are not capable of.
That's one of the books I read at school. Like in English class, we read what's his name, Tenzing Norgay, the guy who was the Sherpa for Edmund Hillary for that first climb of Hill.
Oh, I remember that.
He wrote a memoir. We read that in English class in high school.
Yeah, I've heard of that. I've not read it though.
It's a short story, but it's really fun and it's really interesting for someone compared to what Everest tourism is these days. Obviously, what they did back in the 50s, whenever that was really barbaric.
That was hardcore. That was really hardcore when they did it. Jerome says Arthur Machen wrote some weird fantasy stories about the First World War. I've never heard of him.
Arthur Machen is incredibly cool. He's sort of the guy that has had a huge impact on on H.P. Lovecraft, on Clark Ashton Smith, and Robert E. Howard. And he wrote. So here's the thing. He's a fantastic, fascinating guy in his own right. He worked in the circus, did some acting stuff in the 19th century and stuff. And he wrote weird fiction. And then he was asked to write a propaganda story for during the First World War, because he was obviously old to serve at the time, and he wrote this story. It's called The Bowman, or sometimes The Phantom Bowman. It's about an English battalion in war fighting the Germans in France near Agincourt. And they're on retreat and fleeing the Germans, and then they see the ghosts of a legion or a group of British bowmen from the 100 Years' War. The ghosts coming to aid them and defeat the English, defeat the Germans. And that's the story. And the interesting thing about the interesting thing about that is that afterwards it was a huge success as a short story in a newspaper at the time, the Times or whatever. And what's interesting is that afterwards you find soldiers in those battles that he talked about going yeah, we saw those ghosts, because they read the stories as well. So it kind of caused a bit of a stir at that time. So that's the Arthur Machen thing there. He also wrote a story called The Great God Pan that you might have heard of by the title. And there's the novel The White Powder. I personally really like the story The Hill of Dreams. It's a really good story. And if you've read some of Lovecraft's more Dreamlands kind of stories, you can see where the influence is from. So he's sort of like a British bridge between Edgar Allan Poe and your 1930s weird horror fiction authors in a way.
All right. Welcome, Evie.
Hello, Evie.
Evie has joined us on screen.
Hello.
Hooray.
I need to get you guys talking about Spear Cuts Through Water again.
Surprise, surprise. Is there anything else you talk about? No, of course you do.
No. I mean, my cat, sure. My dog.
Realm of the Elderlings occasionally.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was recording. And Persuasion. And I was recording my November wrap up. November was kind of insane for me. I didn't actually read that much, but I bought a fuck of a lot of books and a really big sword. So I was talking about all of that. And I was remembering, it feels like November was really long somehow, like much longer than a month should be. And I was going through like what I read this month, and I started the month with Tony Man, and then read an Amber book, and then read the second book in Tony Man. I was like, wow, that was this month. It feels like it was like 4 months ago. I need to get on to the third one. I need to, what Amber book? I was starting a reread. So I read Nine Princes, the first book.
I do love that one. I think it's probably one of the strongest of the first 5 books. Although I have to say that The Guns of Avalon is one of the best book titles in that. Well, in the last 50 years of fantasy. It's just.
And as I remember it, I remember liking The Guns of Avalon a lot, not just for the title, but also just as a book. Rogue says, Evie, you need to convince me to read Dandelion Dynasty. Rogue does not know that I already own at least the first book of Dandelion Dynasty. Briton. Welcome.
Hey.
We have a not quite full house. A full house at StreamYard is 10 people. I hit that once, but for my 1K subs live stream, I managed to get 10 people on screen. It was chaos. Hi, Britton. What are you reading?
Oh, what am I reading? Well, let's see here.
Britton is interviewing me. When is it? Next week?
This upcoming Friday?
Oh, this upcoming Friday, yeah. Yeah, exactly.
That's going to be late at night for you, Matt.
It's at 8 for me, actually.
You're lucky.
So
He's
doing it during the day. So actually, also good for everyone who likes the Sunday pub to know. Next weekend there will be a Sunday pub. The weekend after that there will not, or at least not with me.
That's perfect.
Because I am going to a role-playing weekend.
Is it at the
That's
castle
great.
again?
Sounds great.
Is it what?
Is it at the
Evie?
castle again? That same.
It is the castle again. It's called the Kraken, and it's
that's from the Chaosium
Actually-
guys, where you play a lot of RuneQuest and Call of Cthulhu and
that is a
and-
misconception. That is a misconception from people who heard about the Kraken like 5 years ago or 10 years ago, and it's changed a lot since then.
That's
basically,
a shame, 'cause I was looking forward to that.
Well, I mean, those games are still there, and like one of my best friends is a line editor for Chaosium, and he will be there running maybe some. He's the line editor for RuneQuest, and he runs sometimes RuneQuest. But it's a thing where everybody can run a game. Anybody can run as many games as they want, and they can run anything they want. So I run really weird games, which are not normal role-playing games, like Tin Candles and Alice is Missing. Alice is Missing is a story where you play with a group of people. The only way you're allowed to communicate in the whole game is text messages. And the idea is you each play a teenager. You're all friends. You go to the same school. And one of your friends, Alice, is missing.
Oh, okay.
And you are trying to figure out what happened to her, where she is, who heard from her last, all of that. And it's got really, really interesting but weird mechanics where every 10 minutes someone has to draw a card which tells them what they've discovered, which they can then tell other people through the text messages.
Oh, okay.
And it's a really, really interesting game. Jerome, she is not in Wonderland. Spoilers. And it can get pretty heavy because I think there are 5 or 6 different endings to the game that you can get, and they're kind of random. Yeah. And one of them is she's dead, of course. You know, she's been kidnapped and killed. And there are some horrible things that can happen in the game, but it's really, really intense and a good, really, really interesting experience. It runs exactly for an hour and a half as well. Britton, I asked you a question.
Oh yeah, I was about to.
And then immediately, I know you were, and I immediately started talking so that you could not answer that question, but now you can.
Okay, so because November was a pretty slow month for me, I'm gonna be finishing up Republic of Thieves by
Oh, cool.
Scott Lynch.
Oh, good.
Which
That's the second or no, it's the third one, right?
spoiler alert, it is not as good as the first two.
No.
Oh God.
Yeah,
Um,
it's not as good. They kind of go down. And the first one's the best, I thought.
Christmas is coming around, and I love the season, so I'm gonna try and get some Christmas reading in. So I got this new translation of the Gawain and the Green Knight. The
Oh,
cover is
right.
from the movie. I really love the film, so yeah, I'm really excited to read this.
Who did the translation for that one? That edition? Or that version?
Bernard O'Donoghue is what it says, right?
Okay.
Right there.
I think I've only
nice
read the
cover.
Tolkien translation for that one.
And Mr. Timothy, which is Lewis Bayard's take, I guess. It's about an adult Tiny Tim it's a mystery starring an adult Tiny Tim from A Christmas Carol.
Okay. Mr. Timothy. That's a smart title for the book.
So I have to say, like, I'm very happy that you're going to the Kraken because that sounds awesome. I've always wanted to go to
Kraken
the Kraken.
is awesome.
It's kind of hard to get to because it's booked out so quickly, right? It
Are you
used to
talking
be.
about the China Mieville book?
No,
No.
different Kraken.
Oh,
The Kraken we're talking about is a role-playing game.
Is it a book Starlek? I think it's at Starlek, right? Or did they change it to a different place?
No, that was Tentacles, which was the one previous.
Oh yeah, the previous one.
The Kraken is at, I forget what it's called, Schloss something or other. It's a castle-ish mansion,
Close to
old,
Berlin, right?
kind of. Yeah, about an hour on a train.
Yeah,
And they call it. They don't call it a role-playing game convention. They call it a role-playing retreat because basically
nice.
you pay up front, you get a room, food all day for the whole time you're there. You don't have to worry about anything, and then you just play whatever you want whenever you want. And it's limited. It's usually limited to like maximum kind of 80, 90 people, so it fills up pretty quickly.
Yeah,
I've gone to the Kraken. There are usually 3 per year. I've gone to the Kraken at least once a year for the last 9 years, I think. So I'm a regular, and it's become like this nerd family, kind of like BookTube, of people that meet at the Kraken. A lot of them I never see otherwise ever, but we see each other at the Kraken at least once a year and get drunk and have a great time and play some games, and it's a lot of fun. I can't wait. And the Christmas Kraken is going to be much cozier, so to speak. It's like 30 people, I think. Intentionally, they keep the Christmas Kraken small. Jeroen is reading the Nutcracker story by E.T.A. Hoffman. Yeah,
that's definitely one of
I've never heard of.
It's definitely one of the less disturbing E.T.A. Hoffman stories.
I've never even heard of.
You haven't?
E.T.A. Hoffman. No.
E.T.A. Hoffman is the classic of the German Romantic writers.
That's why I've never heard of him, because I probably wouldn't like him.
Okay, you want to get really freaked out? Read The Sandman.
Okay.
The Sandman is
by
incredibly...
E.T.A. Hoffman, just to make sure, not the Neil Gaiman Sandman, right?
No.
I've read the comics multiple times, but
I mean The Sandman by E.T.A. Hoffman. It's an incredibly disturbing story. It may have some anti-Semitic undertones.
Okay.
Because it's still the 19th century in Germany. It's incredibly creepy and scary as well. It's about this boy who hears about the legend about the Sandman who steals people's eyes to do magic with, and he goes progressively more and more insane. He also wrote the Golden, in German it's called Der Goldene Topf, but I don't know the English translation for that one because it's not
the golden pot.
It's not just the pot; it's a different word for it.
I've heard of him. I had a friend. His name's Curtis. He wrote a book called Blackheart Boys Choir, and he mentioned a story that, because apparently Hoffman was also a composer as well. I think he was, unless I'm mistaken.
He was
someone else.
not a composer, but some of his stuff got turned into music at the same time. He's part of that whole romantic movement. He's friends with Novalis and friends with the Novalis and other people like that. He wrote the memoirs of Tomcat Moore, which is the memoirs of a tomcat, which is making fun of like the part of the romantic movement and the first, the early 1930s, 1940s stuff. He's really important. The Sandman is scary as fuck. If you want to read like a dark fantasy story that makes like most Gothic feel like a children's story, go read The Sandman. It's really brutal. It without actually having like a high body count or anything. It's just like scary.
Psychologically.
Yeah, it's about this.
More Hitchcock than Hitchcock.
Yeah.
More like
Or
Yeah, and it has all
Bradbury.
these-
I mean, Something Wicked This Way Comes.
Yeah.
Basically nobody dies, but it's creepy as fuck.
Pretty spooky. Yeah.
It's spooky.
Don't
as
trust
hell.
Mr. Dark.
Has anybody
No.
read The Yellow King?
The King in Yellow.
I know
by,
of
King in
Yellow,
Yellow.
yeah.
Maybe that's it.
Yeah, I've read The King in Yellow. It's
Richard Chambers, I think.
Robert W. Chambers.
Robert
Yeah.
Chambers, that's right.
I know him from True Detective because I'm a normie.
That's
The King in
also
Yellow
the
is
first time I heard of
interesting.
it. But although actually, I think the first time I heard of it was through role playing games.
Yeah, through
Because the King in Yellow and all of that.
Robin D. Laws did like a King in Yellow role
Exactly.
playing game. Yeah,
And it's, I mean, the King in Yellow has been turning up in the Call of Cthulhu games for decades.
yeah, because so the King in Yellow is a collection of short stories by Robert W. Chambers, and it has that.
Goodbye, Jeroen.
Oh no! Goodbye,
Bye,
Jeroen.
He is packing to fly back to Tromsø tomorrow.
Tromsø in Norway. That's neat.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
neat.
I mean, I should note that like the Republic of Thieves is solid for the most part. Like, I don't hate a lot of the stuff that other people hate, but there's just one decision in that story that really really made me mad, and I'm going to rant about it when I eventually review it
Excellent.
because
Nothing better than a good rant.
I have to say, with my Pratchett read along discussion that I had today, because we have this ongoing Terry Pratchett Discworld read along. We're now at books. We just talked about book 37. We're almost done with all the Discworld books.
Oh my god.
And it's so here's the thing: is like I made like videos for each of the books, but we have this ongoing discussion on the Discord where we have like a voice chat with everyone who wants to talk about it. That's not recorded because I tried to keep it open for people who don't want to have their face on camera or anything.
Sure.
And Terry Pratchett in 2009 has a character described as he's just Pepe. She, he, those labels are meaningless. He's incredibly woke for 2009.
That's pretty progressive for 2009. I had the opposite experience recently. I'm reading Lord of the Rings, which I haven't read in maybe a decade. I've read it, I don't know how many times, but it's been a while. And I was reading through it and I was like, I can't help but be aware of the sort of default 1930s, 40s racism.
Yeah.
Like the first really dodgy character that you meet, the only thing that he's described as is swarthy.
Slanty eyes.
Swarthy.
Swarthy and slanty eyes. The southerner who hangs out with Will Fernie.
Exactly. So you get to Bree and there's a dodgy dude in the prancing pony and he's swarthy and has slanty eyes. And like, yeah, I mean, he wasn't banging on about it like H.P. Lovecraft liked to sometimes.
Yeah.
But that just sort of that default acceptable level of racism that pretty much everybody white had in the 30s and 40s is full on there. And
the problem is not so much that he points it out, but it actually is the bad guy, because if it's just the scene at the pony, they're super suspicious about the guy because he looks different than them.
No, but it's totally clear. He is the bad guy.
Yeah, that's the point. That's the point we're talking.
He doesn't
I
just
mean,
look dodgy. He is the bad guy.
yeah, I know,
And-
because
yeah.
because they see him hanging out in Bill Ferny's house when they leave and everything. We know he's evil. I know that. But what I find-
Conan was swarthy too. Yes, Conan was swarthy too, but Conan wasn't swarthy to. He wasn't described as swarthy to make it shorthand for "don't trust this guy."
Oh,
You know?
wait till you read a Night of the Veil Women. That'll make you really uncomfortable. You read
that one is Night of the Whale. The Veil of no, it's called Veil of the Lost Women. It's bad.
Oh yeah. It's interesting. It's an
Veil
interesting
of Veil of the Lost Women and there's Shadows in Zamboula. Those are the two most racist Conan the Barbarian stories by Robert E. Howard. They're the ones that are really, really, really bad. But if you want to see like Robert E. Howard at his most racist, you should read his Solomon Kane stories. There's some really uncomfortable stuff going on there. I know I'm not exactly advertising Robert E. Howard right now.
Speaking of Conan,
He's a great writer nonetheless.
Yeah.
Speaking of Conan, though, I haven't read it yet, so
Yes.
take this with a grain of salt. But Stephen Graham Jones, Stephen Graham Jones, who writes The Only Good Indians and Mon Girls and My Heart is a Chainsaw and various other horrors, he I don't know how recent this was, but he wrote a Conan story.
Oh yeah, I heard about that.
I'd love to see that. I know that Robert Jordan, the Robert Jordan of all the misogyny masquerading as feminism,
Your
wrote
favorite
some
author,
Conan stories that
your favorite author,
are all
Raph.
very uncomfortable from what I hear.
I recently, because I saw Jared Henderson, who I didn't really know before, and he was on Joanna's channel. They had a chat, and he did a
He was on
Dr.
Philip's
Fantasy
channel as
with
well.
Philip. Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of how I got exposed to him. And Joanna asked him what his favorite fantasy series is. And I mean, up until that point, I'm thinking, wow, this guy is obviously, he's very eloquent. He's very thoughtful. He's got a background in philosophy. He knows what he's talking about. Smart guy. And then Joanna asked him what his favorite fantasy series was. And he was like, far and away, Wheel of Time. And I immediately went back and forth between, oh my God, you're actually a fucking idiot. And well,
Hey,
no,
man.
I know he's actually a pretty interesting and smart guy.
Come on, Matt.
Maybe
don't
I
like
should
what
give
you
it
like.
another try.
No, you
Don't
should
shame him.
listen to someone who's got a background in philosophy and well, he's not very eloquent, but listen to me anyway. Wheel of Time is not that good of a story. It does have some very interesting elements and bits and pieces in it, but it's actually at its core, it's fundamentally flawed for a bunch of reasons. Plus, the world building is fundamentally racist, and there's a level of misogyny in there that is very difficult to get rid of.
Yeah, I don't feel very qualified to talk about it myself because I DNF'd the first book twice at about page 200, 250. I was just this is badly written.
Yeah.
It's just
It's not that badly written, actually.
Step for step, it's Tolkien.
Yeah, that's
It's Lord of the Rings, and the first book. I've heard it gets a lot better. But the first book is badly written. And
I think you need to explain what you mean by badly written. I mean, yes, it does very much follow the plot points from Lord of the Rings at the beginning. Very much, close to a point that is almost as comically bad as sort of Chimera.
I constantly, I mean, for me, badly written, and I mean, I guess this is a lot of fantasy actually. If I feel in the first 100 pages that the author thinks I'm 8 years old, and he's explaining things in such a way that I, as an 8-year-old, can get it, then that feels really badly written when you're writing adult fantasy, right? And Jordan was doing a lot of that. I mean, it's like I said, it's common in quite a lot of fantasy.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe Erickson just ruined me.
I think you're onto something, but there's several things going on there. I think I don't think it's not written to explain stuff that's for 8-year-olds old. Yet 8-year-olds. I think one part is that you have an advantage that a lot of people don't have, which is you've spent time in Europe. You've seen castles and shit. You have an understanding of sort of pseudo medieval shit that a lot of people don't have.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of it. It's like you have experiences that a lot of people don't have. There's people who are 18, 19 years old. They start reading Wheel of Time, and they have the conversation about, that whole part when Rand and his dad Tam are going through the forest and they see the dark people behind them and shit like that. And they're talking about how a medieval village looks, and you're like, you and possibly me are going like, that's not how a medieval village works, because we've been over here. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
that's something that a large part of the mostly American target audience of Robert Jordan has not had. So he needs to explain shit that feels normal to you and me.
It wasn't even necessarily the world building over explaining. It was a lot of it was. I felt like he was breaking the most common writing rule or suggestion over and over and over again. He was telling me all the time and not showing me.
Can I just
and also just about go ahead.
Brandon Sanderson.
Yeah. I'm also not a huge fan of Sando. Sorry.
I'm
just you wait for next year. Next year will be my roundhouse kick at everything Sanderson. I'll read all of. I have made a list. I've made a list. I'll read Elantris. I'll read Warbreaker. I'll read Mistborn Era 1, which is a reread because I read it before. I'll read Mistborn Era 2, and I'll read Stormlight. I'll also read a lot of Mormon theology, books on the impact the Latter-day Saints Church has had on white supremacy, on American politics, on American media, and then I'll make videos about all of it. I'll be very detailed.
Now I'm 100% convinced, Raph.
Yeah.
You hate yourself, and you really should talk to your therapist about that.
Here's the point.
Dan's got football.
Hey, I appreciate you
Dan.
guys having me
Take care,
on.
Dan.
I'll see you
Bye,
next
bye,
week
Dan.
for
Yeah,
sure.
Dan.
And I gotta wrap this spear that cuts through water video up. And
Enjoy
it's been
sports
fun.
ball.
I'll see you guys soon. Okay.
All right, see you around, Dan. Cheers.
Take it easy,
Bye,
Dan.
Dan.
I should note. Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Raph.
No, go ahead.
I should note I've never actually read The Wheel of Time, and to be honest, I don't know if I would really like it all that much. And Raph's like, nah, you should probably avoid it. But
I haven't. I just can't even imagine. I've been going back and forth in my head. I was thinking maybe I give it another try and vlog it, and maybe it'd be interesting. But I think I just end up hating myself and hating the waste of time.
Don't make it a daily thing. I can tell you that.
Yeah, I've met some really smart people who love The Wheel of Time, and I'm like, you know what? We all like what we like, okay? I like the film Major Payne, okay?
Major Payne is amazing!
Film. It's a
Sorry, I got really excited. No one ever brings up the movie.
It's a silly film, but I love it,
amazing.
Despite myself. Now, it might be the same thing for my friends, I don't know. And there's some people who might actually see beauty in there, I don't know. But
there's some really good bits in
Hi, John.
It's a different thing.
I don't want to waste the time.
I think you like. I mean, I'm putting words in your mouth, Britton. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think you like Major Payne, fully aware of it being trash, but it's trash that you really enjoy.
No, it's not.
Right?
So I would argue for the general consensus is that it knows what it's doing. And it's intentional. It's not trying.
Sure, I'll give you that.
It's not trying to be Oscar bait here.
It's conscious trash.
Yeah, but anyways, Mike, you've been trying to say something, and we keep over talking you. Sorry.
There's a thing. Sorry, There's the thing that Pratchett says, and I'll just say that one. It's like there's a beauty in seeing someone doing a trick well. There's a beauty in seeing a trick well done. And if that trick is a trash film and it's done extremely well, I can appreciate that and go like, yeah, that was.
There are a lot of Marvel films that I'm never going to nominate for an Oscar, and I'm never going to compare to Shakespeare, but they're fun. You know, I just enjoy watching superheroes bash each other. No problem with that. But that's not what the Wheel of Time's doing.
No.
I think.
Well,
if I may say, I have read the whole of Wheel of Time back in the days, and it was fun to read in a way that it's maybe in its simplicity, I should say, or in its naivety rather. But what really hits is that the cultures in the world, they're so monolithic. I mean, all isles are the same, all Andorians are the same, or I mean, that's it. And then in the middle books, let's say, they're quite boring. Yeah, I mean, nothing much happens. The plot goes, all over the place, and then it picks up during the final books, and but Brandon Sanderson has made quite a decent job of wrapping up the story. It was a little bit too bad. Well, I know many people that love Wheel of Time, but not because of the depth of the series or the character stuff. Like there are some nice ideas, and in countries like here, that not many books get. Fantasy books get very well known or translated. It was one of the few series that got translated and got some fan base. So yeah, it depends on what
you just don't take this the wrong way, Mike. You
No.
just extended a cliche that I have in my head that because I don't think I've ever talked to a Wheel of Time fan about the Wheel of Time and wanted to read it more after what they said. Because there's actually a video just recently. I saw a video, and the thumbnail is a guy who looks really excited, and it's the cover of the first book of the Wheel of Time, and big typography that says, "You'll hate it." And it's about the fans of the Wheel of Time talking about the Wheel of Time, that people describe the slog, and like you said, the middle books, they don't really have a plot, and there isn't really anything going on and whatever. On the one hand, I always have this FOMO that a lot of people obviously like it, right? And not everyone in the world's an idiot or something. Like a lot of people I know who are definitely not idiots like you, they like it. So there's got to be something to it. And there's a lot of interesting world building I've heard. And what started me thinking about it recently was I was watching the second season of the TV show. And I don't want to get into how bad that is or anything, but there were a lot of points in it where I was like, this is pointing at some interesting world building, which they are not really exposing in the show, right? They were just like these hints and clues and bits and pieces where I was like, I don't know what they're talking about, and they're not explaining it in the show, which makes the show worse. But it hints at something that sounds interesting from the books,
and that's the problem. It sounds interesting in the books as well, but there's no real. There's no depth in it. I mean, you can't go a level deeper and see how this interesting thing. There are some interesting traditions and stuff like that from all over the world.
This was also what Joe said. This was also a cliche that I had in my head. I was like, everybody who loves the Wheel of Time read it when they were a teenager. And it's only because they read it back then and it was formative, like Lord of the Rings was for me. That's why they love it. And the thing that, I mean, Evie already answered it. The thing that made me think, oh, that's interesting, is Jared Henderson, who is undeniably an intelligent man, read it recently. I mean, not in his teenage years, and it's his favorite fantasy series. Which
yeah, I'd love to have a conversation with him, because when I read Wheel of Time last year, I was asking for people who like Wheel of Time to come on and explain to me why they think it's a good book, and no one ever wanted to talk to me about it. And I'm like,
I'll send you a link to Joanna's chat with Jared, because he explains in like 3 or 4 sentences why he thinks it's great, and that made me want to read it. You know, where I was like, I have this opinion about it, and he just cracked my opinion about it. You know?
I think there's some things that, like, people make fun of Jordan for the wrong reasons, because people read Jordan the wrong way. There's something that Robert Jordan is incredibly good at. He's very good at writing cosmic horror. There's several horror set pieces in the Wheel of Time series that are just incredibly well done as horror. Outside of Wheel of Time, they're just like really, really, really well done. And he's got other strengths.
2 towers.
So there's obviously the whole, like, the ways thing with the wind following them. There is the pseudo Shadar Logoth is really well done. There's one in, I don't know, the 10th or 11th book, when they go into this town because they want to buy a grain, and something's off in that town.
Oh yeah, I remember that one.
And it's an incredible, like, that entire chapter is just, as a whole, you could take that and turn it into like a fantasy horror story that's sort of like a haunted town. They go in there and something's wrong and something's off, and everyone is slightly off kilter, and then you realize how the entire thing is haunted by the dead and everything. It's fucking awesome. It's brilliant. It's so good. I just wish there was like a more, there's so much wasted potential there.
So I have a question that I'm gonna do like a diatribe and then have my question. So all this talk about like Wheel of Time and nostalgia and stuff like that, you know, in my experience, like I can't even say like when I was a kid, but even now, there are so many books that I read at the right or wrong time in my life that when I reread them, I, obviously have changed as a person, whether it be, 6 months later, 6 years later, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Have there been any books other than Wheel of Time, or the kind of just the obvious ones, that you have read or experienced that it's that nostalgia factor, but you?
I have the opposite. I am possibly, I mean, you would probably agree, I'm probably in the top 10 Malazan fans that you know. But as far as how Malazan fan I am, I DNF'd Gardens of the Moon twice before I read it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, whoops, that's my weird camera thing again.
You should really turn that off, by the way.
Yeah, no, I might do that. But I couldn't get into it. It was, at the time for me, it was too complex. It was too obscure. It wasn't handing me enough answers. I don't know. I just didn't get into it. And then I did. So that's the opposite of your question. Things that were...
I will say that I technically started Assassin's Apprentice like 5 years ago, and I bounced right off of it after not even the first page, because it was not the right time, and now it's
not even the first page.
Yeah.
I'm a pretty stubborn guy, so that's kind of hard for me. Maybe like Captain Underpants, and that's like a deep cut, when I was a kid, because I ate those up. And also stupid books, but I loved them as a kid because I just, or like Magic Tree House, which I still have a degree of fondness for. Though if I read them now, I'd probably be like, a little too simple. But
well, I mean, they're supposed to be simple, so.
But again, like if something is doing the thing that it's trying to do really well, even if the thing it's trying to do is dumb, that can be fun, you know.
Yeah, for me, it's
See
like
every Marvel movie.
yeah.
Basically.
I very rare things that are dumb. There's things where I can actually sort of do like a double thing at the same time, where I can read something and enjoy the nostalgia and also notice all the problematic stuff. Tolkien is definitely one of those cases. I can read Lord of the Rings and I can read The Hobbit and get incredibly annoyed by how fucking classist the trolls are, because the trolls, and that's something you'll encounter in a bit, Matt. Right? When
Well,
orcs
it's in
get
The Hobbit. The three
Yeah.
trolls in The Hobbit. Yeah, they are
The three
obviously lower class working people.
yes, and when exactly, and when the orcs start to talk in the Two Towers, they also have very
Yeah,
exactly.
You know what?
It's like,
You know what is actually annoying me on this reread, which has never annoyed
mutton
me
to
before?
die and mutton to blimey if it wouldn't be mutton tomorrow, and I'm like,
Sam
John,
is
motherfucker.
not Frodo's friend.
No, he's not.
Sam is Frodo's fucking servant.
Yes,
And everybody in the book treats him like a servant.
Yes.
At least in the Fellowship. It changes a bit.
Yeah, because
later,
he
but
has
not
to
completely.
fucking clean up the mess they make when they do the bathing thing at Crick Hollow, right?
And also, like when they get up in the morning, Pippin is
Yeah.
screaming at Sam to make breakfast. You know,
Yeah,
Sam
it's
is a
always
servant.
Yes,
And they treat him like a fucking servant. And he constantly calls them sir, and they constantly call him Sam and tell him what to do. And it never really, this class consciousness that is so
that's
obvious in England and nowhere else.
He's their Batman, which don't look up how it's spelled, but he's the Batman, which is the job that you had back in the day in the military, which is like every officer who was obviously higher class had a Batman who's the guy who has to take care of them. And that's exactly what Sam is. And
he's Frodo's gardener.
Yeah, and the thing is, you had the same thing at university for a long time, where those people who couldn't pay the tuition fee for Oxford or Cambridge or whatever could work for one of the people who could afford the tuition stuff, and through that way actually also study, because they kind of worked for a rich student. Isaac Newton actually paid his way into fucking Oxford at the time by being a servant for like a lord's son who actually didn't want to study. But that's how it works. And Sam is exactly that character, but people think he's just another friend. He's not.
He's totally
they
not.
discover some sort of stuff later on, but
I mean, it's something I was really conscious of because I've spent, like, in this reread, I am consciously, like, in my vlogs, I'm first of all, I'm talking a lot about the differences between the books and the movies. But the main thing I'm trying to do is get people who only know the movies to give the books a chance. And I'm trying to think about the books in a way I never have before. And that is one thing that really popped out at me, especially because I've spent a lot of time in England.
Yeah.
And England, I mean, a lot of Americans who don't know English culture that much wouldn't know this, but England has a class system. And it's not
still there.
It's not I have more money than you. It's actually class, like nobility exists in England. It's not nearly as much now as it was when Tolkien was writing almost 100 years ago. But when Tolkien was writing, the class thing was like just a fact of life, that certain people were born into a certain class and were considered better than people in lower classes. Whoops.
That's why, I mean, kind of taking it even further back to like Jane Austen Regency era. Like that's why you had, these, albeit fictional characters, but I'm sure it happened in the real world in Britain at her time. It's like so many naval officers were getting rich because of the Napoleonic Wars, and they're basically monetarily at the same level, if not exceeding these old money like landed gentry, and this landed gentry are like, I gotta defer to this guy because this guy's higher than me technically. Like,
I was at a party in England only a few years ago.
Yeah.
I was in a party in England. That's a great way to start it.
I was at a party in London with a guy I know who, I mean, he doesn't he went to the right schools, put it that way. He's not exactly nobility or anything, but he went to the right schools. And I was, got really dressed up because it was kind of a fancy party. And I was walking around, and 3 guys that I started talking to who didn't know me assumed I was British because I was there. And the first question they asked me was what school I went to.
Yeah.
Because if you didn't go to the right school, they won't talk to you.
There's a really funny joke that's also incredibly sad and revealing. I think it's a joke. I think it's a quote by either Churchill. One of those blokes is like, "What's the best way to own property in England? To have an ancestor who was friends with William the Conqueror."
Yeah.
That's
Vero lives in England, and she said sadly that all of this still does exist, and it's connected to language, which is also really interesting. Like there are accents by which these people can identify each other. And if you don't have the right kind of accent,
and that's one of the things that I to bring it back to Pratchett, because I just talked about it. It's like Pratchett is one of the authors that really pounds that into you again and again. It's like it's so easy to kind of read Pratchett as this funny author who does all the jokes and whatnot. Pratchett, at his heart, is incredibly angry about a lot of these things. It's like he several times does this, like, owning
he's a big
several
social
streets,
critic.
Yeah, very much. Owning several streets of slums is not a crime, although living in one might be seen as one. I'm like,
Joe, I think Evie would tell you that you might learn a lot by reading Jane Austen. Like as far as identifying people's class and background from the way they speak.
Actually, a book that I would highly recommend for that is Wuthering Heights, because Emily Bronte writes the butler servant character. I think his name was Joseph, if I recall correctly, in the kind of what's the phrase in dialect of this kind of really heavy, like not even Yorkshire, but like you could
working class.
He is separate from even the oh my god, words are hard.
The upper class people in the story.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, I could imagine, Joe, that like making up your own false grammars could be a real problem, because what you need to do is you need to trigger recognition of lower class, higher class in your reader, and that's a slippery slope, because I mean, or not a slippery slope, but it's touchy. Yeah, exactly. I mean,
that's
it could
funny,
be
Raph.
pretty offensive. What's that?
Go
ahead.
It's funny, Raph, that you bring up Pratchett as an angry writer. I was talking to Derry the other day on my podcast, and she said the exact same thing. And I'm like, you know what that makes me think of? That makes me think of Raph, because he said a similar thing in one of his videos. I think he told me on our podcast episode, as a matter of fact.
See, that's the thing. There's a really good thing that got published shortly before Pratchett passed by Neil Gaiman that is exactly about the same thing. I think it's an article in The Guardian. It's called "Terry Pratchett is not jolly, he's furious."
Yeah.
And it's an incredibly powerful thing to read, and I recommend everyone read it. But it's like I've read Pratchett a lot of times. Like there's like on BookTube, there's maybe one person who's a bigger Pratchett fan than me, and that's Derry.
Hey, what about Alan? What about Alan?
No, trust me, I'm more of a Pratchett fan than Alan. I've read I've read all of Discworld.
Declared a jihad, buddy.
No, seriously. I've read all of Discworld more than 3 times. Some of them more than 10 times. I've read most of the other stuff as well more than 1 time. I'm more of a Discworld fan and more of a Pratchett fan than
Alan. I don't think I know anyone anywhere who would try to start that fight except Raph.
Yeah, because I know because I know I will win that fight, and that's the point. But that's the thing. It's like there's one person I would call a bigger Pratchett fan than me, and that's Derry.
I mean, if you were saying you were a bigger Pratchett fan than Derry, I'd have to kick you off the stream. That's just ridiculous. It's crazy talk. But I'm not getting into the Alan Raff war. Not interested.
Listen, we can all be a biggest fan of something. It's a tier, not a number.
Yeah, my point
That's
is
good.
now,
That's good.
at the end of the day, I think it's the important part is that people understand that Pratchett is a very angry person, which is exactly what makes Pratchett's books work, because there's anger actually fueling all the humor. There's a beating heart behind that. And
I haven't read much. I mean, I'm very far from being the biggest Pratchett fan, but it was pretty clear just reading a couple of his books that, I mean, yeah, he's funny as hell, no question, but he's also a social critic. Like, that's
he's not afraid to have a little fun. He's like Dickens, is what the sound like.
Yeah,
pretty different from Dickens, I would say, but I understand what you mean. Yeah.
So going back to Alan, so I'll actually just reiterate / paraphrase what I told him in a previous stream, and Terry Pratchett, or I should say, Alan seems to be like Terry Pratchett, just from the way you guys are describing him, is that
angry and funny.
Well, that too. The reason that there is a massive frustration or anger or just passion of something or behind something, whether that be anger or joy, it's that they care. So Alan cares, so that's why he gets passionate about things, anger or joy. And it sounds like Terry Pratchett is the same thing. Like, from everything that I've heard, which I still need to read Equal Rights, he is very like
Pratchett, the backbone. Pratchett has an incredibly powerful moral backbone, and that is very much about injustice. Pratchett hates injustice, and he'll fight injustice tooth and nail. He'll get like incredibly violent, but with words about it. And what makes Pratchett so powerful is that over the entire time of Discworld, which is like 40 years, like a couple of days back, we actually passed the 40th anniversary of the first Discworld novel. And over these 40 years, he changed as a human. And he realized where he was like getting things wrong and stuff, like, which is why I pointed out that stuff about like something in 2009 when he talked about like, pronouns and gender pronouns. Like, who cares about that shit? It's not relevant. 1984 Pratchett would not have written that. But Pratchett changes as a person, and he realizes what's fucked up, and then he goes against it because he's very much always on the side. There's a quote in one of the Tiffany Aching books where he goes like, someone has to do for those who can't, and someone has to speak for those who have no voices. And that's Terry Pratchett. Man. And that's Terry Pratchett. At the core of what Pratchett does is exactly that. It's like speaking for those who have no voice and doing for those who can't. And that's the core of it, which is why it speaks so much to me, why it speaks so much to Alan, why it speaks so much to Derry's. We're passionate people. And we recognize injustice, and Pratchett recognizes injustice, and he fights it with humor and words and, all the other stuff. But that's why it works, and that's why it's so powerful.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I just have a black, heartless soul, so...
Oh, come on, Evie, don't...
No. I have to tell. I hope I have to tell you that there's one Terry Pratchett joke that I finally got, and it took me 15 readings and over the decade of but it's so good and it's so funny. It's why I have so much respect for Pratchett beyond anything else, because no one knows how to play with language like Terry Pratchett. They go to the watch house, and over the watch house there's an inscription in the wall that says "Fabricati Diem PVNC."
I got Fabricati Diem. I don't get PVNC.
You have to understand that it's Pseudo-Latin, and Pseudo-Latin doesn't have a U and it doesn't have a K.
Fabricati Diem, punk.
It means make, and Fabricati Diem means make my day.
Is he making a Country Matters joke?
Make my day.
It's the Dirty Harry joke.
It's a dirty heritage. But
Make my
Oh.
day, punk.
and that's the inscription over the City Watch headquarters.
Oh.
Oh, God.
And here's
Brilliant.
and
Brilliant.
here's the point where it gets even more brilliant, because one of the City Watchmen, of the cops, says it's old Latin, and I can translate it. It means to protect and serve.
So, I only got 24 pages into Equal Rights,
Yes.
but there was one line that I literally laughed out loud. Or, well, not line, but one passage. And it's, do you know how wizards like to be buried? Yes. Well, how? Grainy Weatherwax paused at the bottom of the stairs, reluctantly.
Yeah.
Yeah, remember that one?
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
Where's my project?
He's unquestionably funny. I a while ago when I mean this was like a year ago now, I guess, when I discovered primarily Derry's channel, but also you talked about it, Raph, and I heard Alan talk about it, and I was like, it's time for me to get over my fantasy humor trauma, which I completely blame Piers Anthony for.
Yeah.
I read all of the Xanth books by Piers Anthony when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
And I think I just got to the point where I was like, too much stupid humor, doesn't belong in fantasy, fuck fantasy humor. I'm over it.
Yeah.
And I always was like, Pratchett, fantasy humor can't be good, you know? And then you guys convinced me to change that. And I went in and I bought the first 4 City Watches in the nice hardback edition, like the cute sort of small hardback editions. They're really, really, really gorgeous. I love them. And they're not very expensive, which is awesome.
You know
and
what?
I bought them. That's
I
one.
think
Yeah.
with all this discussion about Terry Pratchett and his humor, I'm almost done with the book I'm currently reading. I think I'm just gonna say fuck it and just read it. Read Equal Rights.
Do it.
Please do.
Okay, yeah.
If you ever feel the need to talk about equal rights, I'd love to, because it's something I've done before. And it's a brilliant book, and it's so much fun.
Rogue says the only fantasy humor trauma I have is from Sanderson. Sando writes humor?
He's not funny. That's well.
Do Mormons have humor?
I think
read
that's
Sanderson.
the trauma.
Well,
The idea of being traumatized by like the humor, and when you hear, at least for me, when I hear, fantasy humor or humorous fantasy.
Humorous?
I'm just
Yeah.
like,
humorous.
yeah, I'm just like, humor is so subjective.
Yeah.
And so, but in response to your offering, Raph, I'm totally up for that. I am not sure how eloquent and I will be able to explain my thoughts, good or
That's
bad.
not the point.
I'm just like book good or book bad.
Book good.
Okay. Well,
But you can say book good for a very
I
long
have to go.
Okay,
Sorry,
Mike.
I have to go. Call it a night because I'm working 7 a.m. Yeah. So yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, it goes. Thank you. Good night, Joel. Thank you for having me. Come on. Okay. Thank you. Bye bye. Have a great week. Bye.
Yeah.
Ciao.
Yeah. I think that's like part. Yeah. You go ahead. Richard.
Oh, I was gonna say, well, generally, I am hesitant to try longer series in general, kind of cutting back to the Wheel of Time stuff.
Well, I mean,
so that includes Discworld, and I know Discworld. There's like series within the series.
It doesn't work like a series at all.
In the series, so it gets a little Inception-y. I get that.
It doesn't work at all like a series. I would not
like Malazan. I'm not really.
No, Malazan is can be an intimidating series. Like it's at least 10 books, and they do belong together, and you can't really pick up number 7 anytime you want. But it sounds to me, I'm not the Discworld expert, but Discworld, like I picked up the first book of the City Watch, which is, I don't know, book number 27, or I don't know what it is.
8.
Or 8, whatever. I mean,
yeah,
it doesn't have anything to do with the publishing order. I heard, and I think it was Alan's explanation of like where to start. You can basically start with any of these sub-series anywhere you think would
Yes.
be interesting to you.
I was gonna say
And-
I did finally. Ref finally did get me to put guards on my to be read sooner list. So
It's an incredible. It has the funniest goat joke I've heard in a long time, and it's another one of those that took me like
Funniest
years to
goat
get because
joke.
it's so fun. There's a goat, and the goat thinks to itself in goat because it's tethered to an altar and it's supposed to be sacrificed, but it also gives it like the best view of the whole proceedings. And the goat thinks to itself, "What a lucky goat I am! This will be something to tell the kids."
Oh, yeah. No,
And it took me like years to realize that kids are both like small goats and children because there's a double meaning there. And I'm like,
as a native
"Holy-"
English speaker, reading that, I just went, Terry, really? Surely you've got better jokes. Come on.
he
Listen,
has.
As
He-
someone whose humor is 50% fart jokes and 50% dad jokes, and there is a crossover there.
I'm sure there's a
Pratchett,
lot of
you
You
crossover
have
there.
so many dad jokes with Pratchett.
I should love Pratchett.
This is where part of my trauma from Xanth comes. Xanth, I mean,
I've heard it's kind of pedophilic. Xanth,
Pedophilic?
Piers Anthony book.
Jesus, really?
Yeah, I've heard. I had a friend who said that. And, well, he's smart. I don't.
Wow. I mean, it's been a really long time since I read them, and maybe when I was a teenager, I wouldn't have noticed. I think I'm okay. Yeah, no, I just dropped out for a second. didn't I?
Yeah.
He was about to drop a bomb, and you just paused there.
I
Yeah.
don't
I mean,
know anything about
get-
that.
I get
really
the dad joke. I get the dad joke thing that you have there, Matt. Thing is, once I realized the dad joke, and it took me a while because obviously I'm not a native speaker. I'm like,
Sure, if you have to do the work to figure it out in your second language, then
I
you've
did
earned,
still. I did.
you've earned
if
a
it
lot.
helps, if it
you know?
helps any, I did still very much groan once I figured it out. I was like, "Oh God, you bastard!"
Yeah.
But that's the thing. He
Thornall
does like one of those like every second line because he's, as I said, like that's the same book that has the make my day joke, which is an incredibly powerful joke because that's like how do you need to be able to make fucking dad jokes in like 2 languages.
That's a puzzle joke, which is a whole new level of dad joke. Thornall is asking about Xanth. Never read any book. Are they good? I couldn't say anymore if they're good. I mean, it's an interesting world. Everybody in the world of Xanth, every person has a magic ability, but it can be throwing fireballs or it can be peeing in rainbow colors. Like anything in between. So some people have completely useless magic abilities. They can produce the scent of cinnamon. That's it. That's their magic ability. But other people have really useful and crazy magic abilities. And a lot of what turns up in the humor is puns. A lot of it is like one of the ones I remember quite vividly was somebody had entered a competition for something. I don't remember. And they got as you do, they got a trophy and I'm not explaining it in the way of a joke. I'm just explaining it. So the trophy was a plaque with a cat ass on it. So it was a cat ass trophy. Yeah. Not that funny.
That's bad.
Yeah, exactly. So apparently Wally is saying the Xanth author, Piers Anthony, had a questionable background.
Then again,
I don't remember the books having anything like that, but who knows?
Even the kid joke is slightly better than the cat ass trophies joke.
Then again,
the cat ass trophy is it's pretty bad.
That same guy didn't like Discworld, so you can take his opinions with a grain of salt.
Yeah,
it rolled a 6. Yeah.
Yeah.
Vero has picked out another one of those really good jokes when the gods play games with the fates of
Yeah.
man, but what kind of rules?
Thunder
Nobody
rolled,
knows.
it
And then it's
rolled
like
a
thunder
6.
rolled, it rolled a 6.
Which now, with the common widespread awareness of D&D, you'd have to say it rolled a 20. But yeah,
Rolled a 20.
exactly. I'm also getting tempted now to continue with the City Watch, and I've got kind of I'm in the middle of too many, honestly, kind of chunky series.
Chunky boys,
And
thick boys.
yeah,
2 C's.
after the Fellowship of the Ring, I should probably finish 20 Man, and then after that, I will probably be in the mood for something smaller and lighter, like maybe Discworld or the second book of Amber. We'll see. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Bex said that she's up. They're up. She, whatever. I'm confused with how many Becks there are on Discworld, on BookTube. The point is, like, I'm always up to read-alongs. I'm rarely asked because I'm an angry person, I guess. I'm very antisocial.
Yes, you're very contentious, Raph.
You want to buddy read something with me? We can do. We'll set this up
all the time. I'm always ready to read anything because I never have a TBR. I'm always ready to slot anything in because I rarely know what I'll read next day. Not next week because I'll be traveling to Croatia, but after that, I'm very much ready to read whatever.
What do I? Well, we're supposed to start Adrian the Final Architecture trilogy next month. Me, Pete, and Anita. But
Okay.
I'm trying to think. I mean, I already started the Black Company, so I can't be like, "Oh, you want to do Black Company?" I'm already 3 books in. You got to catch up.
I didn't realize you were reading Black Company.
Do you know how many times I've read Black Company?
Awesome.
Well, I also knew that you've already read it, so
I so want to reread it.
I've read Black Company. I read Black Company before I read Malazan. Is my point. I've read it like 4 or 5 times.
Which is technically the right order.
I know.
In a way.
It is. And
Pratchett kind of looks like Baez as a cowboy a little bit. Like if Baez were
as a cowboy.
No, Baez is unfortunate. Baez in the first Law series by
it's just funny. I just saw a picture. I'm like, he looks like Baez a little bit. He's just thinner.
Baez in the entirety of the first Law series, when it goes all the way to the end, is unfortunately a very bad anti-Semitic stereotype, and it's sad because I don't think Abercrombie did it on purpose. But when they have the last in the last book, in the last end, there's a dream, and the dream ends with someone dreaming of people changing the world and having the world encompassed in like the railway tracks and everything, and the people doing all of that are puppets at the hands of Baez. And I don't know about you, but there's certain propaganda posters from the 1930s that are very much exactly that. And don't do that, man. Don't fucking do that.
Raph, I have to say, with all due respect, I think you're thinking too hard about it. I mean, come on. When you think about it, Baez is like, it's like, what if Gandalf decided instead of helping
haven't seen First Law, okay?
Well, hold on. I'll try and be really vague.
The point, I know there's a Gandalf subversion in there. The problem is that if you have the banks running the kingdoms, because the banks are called the strings of the rulers. Yeah. But
it's the most practical way to do it,
Yes, but if you then listen to me.
Okay.
If you then have one person who may have magical powers pull the strings of the banks, you have reached a point that is somewhere in a novel called Biarritz, and you don't want to know where that novel called Biarritz ended up, because what it ended up in was called The Protocols of the Elders of Zion, and that's exactly that fucking image. And I know it's not on purpose, but that's the problem. Exactly that. You're like, but he's not anti-Semitic. he's not on purpose, but the idea that there are individual people that actually pull the strings for the entire economy, and the economy is then pulling the strings of the politics, that's the core of anti-Semitism, and that's the part that needs to be fucking called out, because if you don't call it out, it will just keep going.
None of that ever occurred to me when I read First Law, but
yeah.
I'm a little surprised and ashamed that it didn't, because like at least the way you just described it, like that is what anti-Semitism is. That's the core of it, like you said.
I mean, I hope you're like, I hope you're not like mad at me. I'm just,
no,
disagreeing here. I'm just like, look, it's the whole thing is like, we're basically like gnats to him. Why would he want to serve us?
Well, it's unconscious bias, and that feeds into all literature across time. Everything is a product of its environment, whether consciously, intentionally, or not. But Raph, going back to a buddy read.
Yeah.
Do you want to read that book that Mike was talking about? The Jan Potocki manuscript of Saragossa?
If I can find it in a version that's accessible to me, then hell yes.
I did find at least on the U.S. Audible site. I don't know if it would be on the German Audible, but I'm assuming it would be because it's in German.
I don't need it in German.
Oh, you wouldn't? Oh, okay. Never mind.
No,
I am sometimes able to read English.
Raph is pretty damn fluent.
I thought you were being serious. Oh my god, I'm such a
just as a brief interruption.
I'm sorry.
Bex has decided she's calling her band Subverted Gandalf, and Bex, I will buy tickets to your concerts.
Hell yeah.
I wanna go see. And Joe, who I assume is Jewish.
Yes, he is.
Which I didn't know. Is making a Jewish joke.
No, so, I keep
but
telling
Raph,
Joe.
We do control. Wait, never mind. Forget I said anything.
I'm Jewish by association, and I make my husband and I make like borderline, if not outright, anti-Semitic jokes to each other. And sometimes I forget that I'm not talking to my husband when I talk to other people when I make those same jokes, and I'm like, oh god.
They're probably gonna think I'm
just like Frodo is an elf friend. I am a Jew friend. I have lots of Jewish friends, but I'm not at all Jewish. I'm a Buddhist. I mean, we don't have a problem with anybody, really.
The important part with why I'm so often banging on about the whole anti-Semitism stuff is that it is so fucking.
You're German.
Yeah, that too. We're really good at anti-Semitism.
Well, no. What I mean is
that makes so much sense now.
Being aware of anti-Semitism, I never realized this until I moved to Germany and got to know a lot of Germans. Being aware of anti-Semitism is beaten into you from a very young age if you are after-war generation, any after-war generation. Like it's very, very consciously sort of taught in Germany to notice that. And like there are a lot of things in Germany with Jews that I was surprised by. Like I moved into a neighborhood and I went for a walk and there was a synagogue around the corner and there were police with automatic weapons patrolling around the synagogue. And I'm police friendly. So I went and had a chat with one of them, had a smoke. And I was like, is there a threat? Is like a terrorist threat or something? Is something going on? What are you guys patrolling for? And he was like, where are you from? I said, yeah, but not Germany. And he said, all synagogues in Germany have this protection. All. It's a law. This is one of the things that the German government does is we protect synagogues. I was like, oh, okay.
To be fair, we had someone try to actually kill people in the synagogue only like a couple of years ago, right?
Oh yeah, no. I mean, it's not like the threat is not real.
Meanwhile, in the U.S.,
but it doesn't happen in the world, anywhere else in the world. What's that?
I was like, meanwhile, in the U.S., that's basically a weekly occurrence. people trying to kill other people. That's what I'm trying to make it.
Yeah, no, it's
I think
I mean,
like
the synagogue would be the last place I would try and cause trouble in Germany, because they are super protected.
I guess it's kind of like I guess, Raph, from the sounds of it, it's kind of like how America is with its African American population, because we've had some let's say troubling history with
America doesn't do shit for anyone. So I'll just put it that way.
No, it's
I'm not
comparing
gonna
it comparing it to Black Americans. It does not fit at all.
I know there's differences.
They're not related.
Kind of like I get where he's coming
close.
from.
Yeah.
Now, I think I never cared that much about anti-Semitism. Like, it was more like a thing that I was aware of course, and then I study history and philosophy, and you get more aware of it and whatnot. And it's like, and then I did that whole thing last year when I did that like longish video on anti-Semitism in fantasy literature and stuff. And I just gave a short history of anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism has been around as a specific thing all the way since the Hellenistic age, which is 300 BCE, all the way. And you add up all these things.
There have been Jews, basically. I mean,
to be fair, there's been othering of everyone by everyone else.
Yeah, definitely. The thing is more that for all kinds of, and you can build up all the historic reasons why that is the case. Mm-hmm. But there have been historic reasons why there's a collection of all these very specific stereotypes, cliches, and superstitions connected to Jews, and they kind of all get compiled all the way to the 19th century, when you have the reordering of a lot of things into both a pseudoscientific, more racist side of anti-Semitism, and a religious side of anti-Semitism, and all of that then through all kinds of other historical reasons leads to the 20th century and the Shoah and everything. But it's important to understand that a lot of these stereotypes are out there. It's why are people using the term poisoning the well? Who got accused of well poisoning for centuries?
Yeah,
Jews. Really? I didn't even know that.
They were also accused of kidnapping Christian children and using their blood. I've heard that.
Yeah, the blood libel is another thing. For a long time,
I must admit, the blood of Christian children is pretty tasty.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't blame anybody for kidnapping Christian children. We've just been drinking their blood for centuries, and that's why we all look so young. I'm actually 80. Yeah, if it wasn't for the Christian children blood.
Yeah, but that's kind of the point. There's so much of this is just something that the Western history, British, Anglo-American history, just in generally Western Christian history, and what you might call a North Atlantic hegemony. We've built up all of these things, and most of it has sort of slipped to the wayside, but we're still using it.
Yeah, it's gone.
And then it kind of pops up at the worst places. It's you look at fucking pogroms in 1900 something in Moldova and shit like that, where thousands of Jews get killed because someone spread the rumor that they poisoned a well, and now everyone's going to get sick, and then they go and just kill 1,000 Jews, and that's kind of thing. These things linger on. And that's why you need to be careful and be at least aware. It's I'm not saying don't read these books because something is in there, but it's be aware what it's saying, and be aware of the fact that it works, because it's something that touches on a ton of things that we've soaked up through all the culture we've listened to and read and watched over all of our lives. And there's all these this entire rat's tail of stories and shit goes back all the way to some fucking Alexandrine priest in like 300 BCE Alexandria being pissed off by Jews, talking about how they actually take like non-Jews and fatten them and kill them in a ritual and eat them. It's like, yeah, that shit's been around forever.
Yeah.
And you need
It
to be
ain't
aware of the
new.
fact that it's still like used to actually build sort of prejudices that lead to all kinds of crimes and violence nowadays. And it's
So-
important to be aware.
On a slightly less genocidal thread,
Yes.
Bex says she'll move to Germany if we can promise her life will be a cabaret. I can promise you, Bex, that if you were to move to Berlin, I could take
There
you
will-
to a club where
is
you
scary.
could, as long as you were wearing rubber, you could have sex on the dance floor with a stranger. That's actually not particularly unique or special in Berlin.
That's
like
true.
Berlin
Anyways,
nightlife.
on that note, so
I don't go to
got
those
really
clubs
dark.
myself.
got
Just to
really
be clear, with my 54-year-old body, I do not go to those clubs myself, but I know where they are.
That got really dark and weird.
well, anyway,
How could it get dark if we're talking about like killing
not-
Jews?
yeah,
and then
nothing
I'm talking about
darker than
nightclubs.
genocide.
I think that like weird nightclubs are a lot lighter than
I've been
killing Jews.
to some amazing drag shows in Berlin. Is all I'm saying. They're really good, and Berlin is a fucking amazing place in that.
Sydney, I would say Sydney drag shows are maybe a little better just because they're less serious because it's not Germany. But that Berlin does have some amazing drag shows. It's true.
So I was gonna say, I think that's actually the awkwardness. This shows like that the bottom half are Americans and the top half are Europeans. Because Americans are repressed sexually, and we can't.
No, you don't say.
Nothing. Like we
You're
can deal
kidding.
with violence and blood and gore and genocide, but as soon as you talk about sexy times, oh god.
I
America's weird.
recommended my favorite recent show to an American friend. My favorite recent show is Blue Eye Samurai. It just fucking kicks ass. It's so good. And my American friend said, I watched it. Really good story. Way too much genitalia. And I was like, really? That's a problem? I mean, it wasn't like zooming in on people's cocks or anything. It
You,
was just
sir,
like,
have never been to fucking Finland.
yeah, I was going to say,
have not.
maybe I've just lived in Europe too long, but
Yeah.
nobody even thinks about that. Like nobody would ever come up with that as a criticism of an awesome show. But America, I forgot, you know.
Yeah.
One old geek says, I joined at an interesting spot in the conversation.
Yeah.
Yes, you did.
Yes, you did.
Welcome to Sunday Pub.
On a hopefully more like not academic, but like this is me trying to be hoity-toity and smart and stuff. We'll see if it comes across well or not. For whatever reason, I've been thinking about this for the past week or so. It's a random thought, and it's really convenient timing that we've had this conversation.
Mhm.
Is that at least in America, and I would say generally as well, a lot of things are perpetrated, ideologies, belief systems. I'm thinking more in the lines of like religious thought are not explored, but expanded upon and like preached about through fear rather than through
Logic?
well, not even love, but kindness, love, like any
Right.
sort of positive
Compassion. Yeah.
incentive. Yeah. And that's one thing I'm inwardly, I was telling someone this the other day, I'm like inwardly, like inside my brain, not outwardly, I am a curmudgeonly, catty old lady who is just, not that I hate everyone, but I have a lot of, I'm not a good person on the inside, so I combat that outwardly.
By sending a lot of people generous gifts.
By being kind. Because I like, what's the phrase? your first thought is what you think. The second thought is what you feel. Like, your first initial reaction is not necessarily a reflection of who you are. Does that make sense? So that's basically.
I don't know if it's true, but I understand what you mean.
Yeah. So I don't know what I was trying to say with that, but yeah. Just, can people be kind to one another? Throughout history, everything bad that's happened is
that America was founded by religious fanatics who hated the world, right?
Yeah.
Like that's where a lot of it comes from. I mean, there are Christian directions where they preach much more about, do good things and you'll go to heaven, and not do bad things and you're going to burn. But the people who like the tradition in America from history is a lot more about the burning than it is about the heaven.
Well, even on top of that, like, to get into the religious stuff is like, you shouldn't be doing kind, good things to be as an incentive to get to someplace good. You should be doing good,
of course.
Well, now we're talking about religion.
You want to be good
being kind. And religion's awesome.
We're touching all the controversial topics.
It's one of the things you're not meant to talk about, but yeah, I love talking about religion. I mean,
the question is,
part of the reason I'm a Buddhist.
Do you want me to talk about Calvinism and the problems with specific aspects of Calvinism that led to the nonconformists leaving towards England, to the United States, and so forth? Because there is something actually very deeply ingrained with that, which unfortunately made this very unholy marriage with very specific aspects of neoliberal capitalism that makes it even more toxic at this point, which is exactly the idea of predestination. And that's kind of part of the problem. Like, you
manifest destiny, baby. That's why we live in California.
As someone who's pretty, well versed in, the Bible. I don't want to say religious thought, because I call myself an expert on that. But yeah, I mean, if you read the Bible, I don't think there's really anything about the idea of predestination, unless you want to consider things about, God saying that he knows you from the moment you're born, or, stuff like that.
It's in a lot of the...
if you take the idea of God seriously, like the idea of God from the Bible, everything is fucking predestined.
Yep.
Everything.
Yeah.
That's what God is, kind of.
See, I'll leave you with that, because I have to go to the fridge, because unfortunately Matt's
we start talking about God, God, and Raph needs a beer.
God and beer.
Look, unfortunately, Matt, as much as I love your pub, it's still a self-serve pub.
If I could get you a beer, I would, man. But I mean, although you're in Germany, as one of the very rare, in fact, the only booktuber that I ever interact with who's in the same country as me, it's a bit far for me to get you a beer.
Yeah, I got to do it myself. I'll be back in a minute. You keep on talking about God. I have opinions.
I'm sure you have no thoughts.
Sure you do.
Okay. I'm baptized a Catholic.
Oh my God, that explains everything.
Everyone. I've noticed so much Catholic. Not hate, but just dislike. Like, I've met a lot of people who don't like Catholics.
I've got a lot of experience with Catholics, and I've got to say, I've got a lot of experience with a lot of different religions. Catholics rank kind of at the bottom as far as being fun. Like Hindus, Buddhists, most Christians, they all are generally, on average, more fun than Catholics. I went to a Catholic boys' school. That's what made me a Buddhist.
Dear.
That's why I'm a Buddhist.
Got it.
Exactly. I was literally no shit. I thought
you have a spoon and they whacked your ass with it.
I still think this is hilarious. No, a leather strap across the hand. Up to 6 times.
Worse.
I got 6 once because I was a troublemaker. But I was in a religion class. I love this. I still think this is hilarious. I was in a religion class, and everybody knew I was not a Catholic. Like, I wasn't raised Catholic. I was just
your
there.
Parents sent you to a Catholic school. What the hell?
It was a really good school. Academically, it was a really good school. It was like one of the best schools in the city, and that's why I was there. So, in religion class once, the guy is explaining original sin. the guy being the teacher who is a priest, right? And he's explaining original sin and the need to confess and all of this sort of stuff because of original sin. And I was like, okay, if I understood original sin correctly, I have not been baptized. The guy next to me, my best friend, he's been baptized and he's a Catholic. And he's a real asshole. Like, he's a real troublemaker. He steals things. He does all sorts of stuff he shouldn't do. But if the two of us walk out of the door right now, we get hit by a bus, both of us, and killed, I go to hell and he goes to heaven because he's been baptized a Catholic and I haven't. And the teacher priest said, correct. And I said, bullshit. And he threw me out of his class and I had a free period for the rest of the year, which was great. But
that
yeah,
feels
I've got a little Catholic trauma.
Just 3.
I have to say, it feels way too realistic, but yeah,
it happened. That's why it's.
I got in trouble with like a religion teacher myself, so don't worry.
I had 2 years in a row. I had a free period all the way through the entire year because I argued with the religion teacher.
Matt, can you highlight Thornall's comment about Satanists?
Satanists are stupid, all of them.
Yeah, no, on the fun scale, how far do Satanists go? Super duper fun, because you know what? They're the ones that are protecting women's bodily autonomy rights in the U.S.
All right. Okay. How much do you know about Satanists? Because yes, there is the Church of Satan. They're like very much like a meme kind of thing, and they're doing great work because they have some anarchist tendencies, and they're doing it for the right reasons. They're not actually religious in any way.
No, I know.
There are what you might call the anti-cosmic Satanists, and those people
anti-cosmic Satanists.
Yeah, anti-cosmic Satanists are people you don't want to mess with. They're fucked up.
No, well,
hey, Evie,
their goal is their goal.
High five! I was raised by Southern Baptists as well. Woo!
Real? Then why the hell did they send you to a Catholic church? Isn't that like? Aren't Catholics like?
Well, it's a long story, but basically, my grandmother was a staunch Southern Baptist. My mother was completely uninterested in religion. When we moved to Australia, my mother sent me to the best school she could afford to send me to, which happened to be a Catholic.
Was Jesuits.
It was actually Christian Brothers,
okay.
St. Edmunds. But yeah, it was a good school. Just the whole religion part, I was like, guys, I think you're making me into a Buddhist. I don't think it's working.
So I mean, I'm not surprised, but at the same time, I'm realizing Satanism is much like Christianity in that you have sects of Satanism. Like,
if you put any group of humans together that is larger than 2, they will split and form a new group.
They'll splinter, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They say in Tibetan Buddhism, I'm a Tibetan Buddhist. My particular brand of Buddhism comes from Tibet. And I'm not Tibetan, but I practice Tibetan Buddhism. And the Tibetans say that if you get 3 Tibetans in a room together, they will have 4 opinions.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it basically describes humans in general. It's not just the Tibetans, but the Tibetans are really fucking political. Man, they are scheming, intriguey bastards. It's crazy.
Well,
I love them. I love Tibetans. But
to be fair, they have to be because they have China taking over their entire country, and
Oh no, this goes hundreds of years back before China invaded. Like they like if you read about Tibetan history, they are schemy, intriguey. Wow, really. Everybody has this idea of Tibet because China invaded and Tibet's the victim and all of that. And
it's like people are humans and not everyone is a monolith and not everyone is perfect.
Sure. Of course. Exactly.
What?
I'm pretty much.
Men have fallen short of the glory of God, as Romans, I think 4:12 said.
What is an anti-cosmic Satanist? It sounds
Sounds
like something out of Warhammer.
I like that. I read
It's
that.
far more.
It does.
It's far more Lovecraftian than Warhammerish. Is my point. But
They
it's-
literally
it's-
like worship
it's
Cthulhu.
it's sort of more like a Gnostic kind of thing, but getting the Gnostic thing all wrong. But it's all about like destroying the cosmos because it's obviously created by the demiurge, and in their version, like God is the demiurge and Satan is actually God. So you need to destroy the cosmos, and yeah.
Well, they sound like
Wow.
they sound like very bright individuals, I'm sure.
They sound like they've taken a lot of drugs.
Very sane individuals.
I'm not going to defend them.
But
Nah, I think calling them not very smart or saying they're on a lot of drugs is probably a bit of a shorthand for what's actually going on there, because the idea of Nazism obviously has occurred to a lot of people, and beyond that, it's more like where you assign blame and names, right? I mean, Gnosticism has been around for a long time, and the idea that like it's one solution, it's not a good solution, but it's one of the solutions for the problem
Oh,
of
thank
evil.
God you didn't say the final. Thank you, Matt, for getting my stupid joke.
I mean,
I got your stupid joke.
I mean,
I just didn't hear half of it, so I didn't have a chance.
No,
to
I was just saying. At least you didn't say final, Raph. Thank you.
I try to avoid that.
As a German,
look,
we get a lot of training.
We tried it; it didn't work.
Yeah, exactly. Try something else.
Anyways, on that,
I agree with Daniel or Daniel. I hate all anti-life philosophies. I tend to also not be a fan.
Yeah, I'm not a. Have you guys read the Thomas Ligotti?
Have
any of you read the Conspiracy of the Human Against the Human Race? I wanted to read that.
I have it, but I haven't read it yet. But
Joe has a good point. We should let Marvel know about these anti-cosmic Satanists. Marvel needs
Evie's trying to say she's popping off.
Serious villain, don't
Yeah.
they? Evie has to go, I'm guessing.
Yes, and I know I have no excuse because it's late for you guys, Matt and Raph. So I would say, it's because it's late, but it's not really late. I just need to go prepare for the work week. So
that is actually a good opportunity because it is actually kind of late here, and I'm a little not quite really fully on sick, but kind of sick. And
we can still talk on Friday. I don't want you going oh shit, I can't make it again because like
I don't generally get sick enough that on Sunday I'm sick and on Friday I can't talk to someone. If I'm that sick, then we have a much more serious problem than your podcast. So, I think we'll be fine for Friday.
Matt, may I request a vision of Fitz, please? Is she around?
Yeah, but I have to go get her. Wait a sec.
Yeah, I'll have to say, like, I'm happy that Matt gets to go to Kraken. I'm also a bit envious, but on the 17th, when there will be no Matt's Pub, I will, if nothing else changes, have a live stream interview with Nicola Griffith, the author of Spear and Hild and Minwood and other books.
I hope you're going to see totally pissed off because she was sleeping.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for appeasing me.
So you could see her. She's actually pretty cuddly. Even when you wake her up, she doesn't like claw or bite anyone ever. She's
Make sure you play with one of the toys so that she knows that I
Evie loves her.
Waking up for us.
There is actually, I've decided all of my monthly wrap-ups from now on will have a Fitz feature. So there is a bit of video footage of her in the monthly wrap-up that I just cut this evening, and will be forever after probably. And she will photobomb me all the time anyway.
Yeah, that's what cats are for.
Exactly.
So, Raph, you said that's the 17th?
What?
The Nicola Griffith? interview?
The lady who wrote the Spear Through the Water book.
No,
No, she just writes
that's
Spear.
The Spear Through the Water book.
No.
No,
First of all, that's a
wrote,
guy.
She wrote Spear. She
and
wrote
it's the
Spear,
Spear.
and she wrote
That's cool.
she wrote Spear. She wrote Hild and Meanword and So Lucky, which is the best thing I personally have read on chronic illness and disability in a long time. It didn't make me cry. It also did me make like very angry and want to set shit on fire, which is exactly the kind of book I like. Chris, it's
That
really,
sounds like
it's
your crying equivalent anyway.
no, it's about her.
Like that meme of that guy who's like angry crying.
It's
You ever seen
it's a
that?
sort of autobiographical thing about someone get like a MS diagnosis and coming to terms with it, and coming to terms with like having to realize how little like the world actually accommodates people with the chronic illnesses and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's a really powerful thing.
So what I was asking is, what time is that going to be again?
It's on the 17th, and it's going to be at 10 p.m. my time, which is
4 p.m. 5 p.m.
I don't know what time zone
10
you're
PM, 10
at.
PM your time. Evie, are you East Coast or Central?
Eastern.
Yeah, then it's 10.
10.
Wait,
Six
no.
hours behind. You're
Yeah, so-
6 hours behind Raph and I. So if
So
it's
10 o'clock rep.
That's 4
4
p.m.
o'clock.
for you.
oh
That's 4
yeah,
p.m.
sorry,
for you.
4. I was
4 p.m.
getting
for
the
you. Yeah,
Um,
because she's in Seattle, which is Pacific, which is 9 hours behind.
So
we had to move it to 10 p.m. because it's going to be a live stream, and she wants to have beers with me, and so we have to make time for her to drink beer afternoon.
That's fun. I'm assuming there will be a non-spoiler section.
There will be non-spoilers, and I think like we'll be talking about a lot of medieval stuff, and like she's there's very few authors I really want to talk to. And I've always, because look, very few authors that I really love their books also have stuff to actually say beyond just the books. And Nicola Griffith is one of those people that have a lot to say beyond that. And she's definitely one of those incredibly amazing people that have, like, you know, coming from like a Catholic background in England, making their way out of that, becoming, you know, being openly queer in times when that was not necessarily your thing, being like a instructor for like women's self-defense and martial arts and stuff, and then having an MS diagnosis and coming to terms with that and doing all of that crazy shit, then writing incredibly powerful novels and stuff. Like, there's someone I want to talk to because they're incredible people.
All right, so instead of me reading Equal Rights, then I'm going to prioritize Spear, so I can at least have that.
You're gonna read Spear? Yeah, please. Spear is short. It's a novella. It's like the audiobook is like 4 hours.
I literally ordered it after you recommended it when I asked you.
I hope you love it.
Of course she did.
as someone who has read way too many Arthurian legends over the last year, I think this is one of the most powerful and best ones. It's not the funniest.
I am woefully uninformed when it comes to Arthurian legend stuff, other than the big stuff like Lancelot the Douche, apparently. So
yeah,
Sword in the Stone, Disney really got
this one. This one is a very short one. It's a very almost cozy one. It's incredibly poetic. It's
cozy.
You'll get it.
Death of Arthur.
It's a very specific. It's mostly it's part of the Parzival story. It's the Welsh. It's the Welsh Peredur story that you get from the Mabinogion, but it's also queer, and it's incredibly powerful and very poetic. It reads more like a poem than anything else. It's beautiful.
Hopefully I will enjoy it just as much without having the context of the background of everything. So
no, it's just a beautiful story.
Name the book and the author again.
Spear by Nicola Griffith.
Nicola Griffith.
Just Spear by Griffith. Okay.
Yes, and her historical novel is called Hild, and the second one is called Meanword. But Hild is about both of them are about Saint Hilda of Whitby, who gets about one chapter in the Venerable Bede's history, ecclesiastical history of the people of England.
All right.
and it's the best,
Interesting.
like the best historical novel I've read in a long time.
Okay. I
It's
am curious.
seriously
I'm always
that's
curious for more Arthur versions. I'm kind of a Lamort hardliner. All
You like the
these
Mists of
newfangled
Avalon?
kids know.
yeah.
Basically anything that isn't Lamort, I can piss on it. But I don't. I'm not being serious. I read Mist of
I had a
Avalon
feeling you probably didn't like Mists of Avalon.
twice. I read Mist of Avalon before you were born, kid. Actually, I probably did. I don't know how old you are, but you look like you weren't alive when I read Mist of Avalon.
I probably wasn't.
Yeah, I was.
I read it
20,
I
so
read it this
over 30
year, and
years
I
ago.
did actually take it seriously. I still had some minor criticisms.
I totally like the idea, like just the starting point of Arthur isn't a story about women. Let's tell the story from a female perspective. I'm like, yeah, cool idea, super cool idea.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of women who basically, in Lamort anyway, they only exist to cause trouble.
Yeah.
And that's all the perspective you ever get of them.
Yeah, I agree.
They are just destructive.
I
And
think
that's
Taking a switching to a non-Arthurian thing, as someone who has not read the Ramayana, so I don't have the context, but the book that I'm hopefully going to finish up tonight, The Forest of Enchantments, is the Ramayana from Sita's point of view, and it's really,
okay.
really good.
Okay.
Really good.
Cool.
Yeah.
But anyway, sorry, I interrupted.
No, so here's the thing. My main issue is with the Mist of Avalon is that it's very much tinged by a very specific aspect of second wave feminism that is built up on your Margaret Murray witch cult in Western Europe, your Jessie L. Weston from Ritual to Romance, in a very specific way that kind of pushes certain aspects of second wave feminism that are like exactly the problem, which is the middle class white woman's feminism versus the queer, colored, and so forth feminism that kind of got pushed to the side. And you see a lot of that kind of come through in Mists of Avalon. It's kind of clothing that because it kind of harkens back to that Margaret Murray and so forth. It kind of uses those like, but we have sources, like, yeah, but your sources are fucked. This is not how it ever worked. There is no such thing as a specifically female pagan witch cult that had all the wisdom of the ages and then Christian patriarchy came and destroyed it. That's not how that worked.
Yeah.
And she does use a lot of that
Thornall has
stuff.
a question, which you, Raf, may be able to answer. I can't. A book from Mordred's perspective. I'm sure there is one at least, but I can't think of any myself.
I know there's one, but I haven't read it either. So I can't help there either.
Can't think of it off the top of my head.
I always keep recommending. I recommended it to you, like whenever you're done with your current Lamort de Arthur rereading, Matt, I really want you to read By Force Alone by Lavi Tidar, because I want you to experience the sheer bravado that guy has.
That sounds good. I think I have it on my wish list already. From last time we talked.
Yeah.
By Force Alone.
By Force Alone. It's subverting Arthur, not with a chainsaw, not with an axe, but with the Warhammer 40k equivalent, which is a chain axe.
Okay. Oh, and
Very much looking forward to reading this.
That's really interesting. I'm just looking at the cover, which is very interesting. It's one of the classical Arthur portrait paintings that was done probably in the, looks like 16th, 17th century, but then it's got graffiti writing over it. Okay, that sets the mood.
Is, and I have to say that as someone who spent a bit of time looking at Arthurian literature and history over the last year, it's probably the best researched Arthur retelling I've read in a long time.
Okay, like researched as in connecting to the actual history that inspired the mythology, or what do you mean?
Yeah, but he's read his Mallory, and he's read his
Okay.
Gildas, and he's read his fucking Joffrey of Monmouth and all the others.
Okay.
That's
Right.
what I mean. It's incredibly well researched. All the jokes have a basis somewhere. They're just,
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
It's just.
I am officially curious.
He takes all of Arthur and presses in like 400 pages and doesn't leave much out.
Okay. That's a very
Also,
good job.
Lots of sausages.
Lots of sausages. Okay, that wasn't in Lamort.
You mean like actual sausages or like sausages?
Metaphorical sausages.
It's just like always when they're on campaign and someone comes across and they always like someone has sausages, so they grill sausages, which is just really funny.
Yeah,
I have actually done a surprising amount of medieval camping, and grilling sausages is pretty common. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the point. It's like, how do you tame a questing beast? The answer is by offering it sausages.
Of course.
Yeah.
How else? I mean, we're not stupid. So we were actually working up towards cutting this off. Speaking of sausages.
Well,
since it's 11:30 here in Germany. And
well, Matt, it was nice to actually meet you face to face.
Likewise.
Closest face to face is
screen to screen, camera to camera. Yeah. Sausages are much better traveling food than stew. Correct. Especially if you don't have Tupperware.
And to be fair, you can always turn very dry and old sausages into stew afterwards.
Exactly. They are universal awesome food. Anyway, everybody on the screen and in the chat, it has been another pleasure.
Yeah.
The Sunday Pub will open again at 9 p.m. Berlin time next Sunday. Just that you're prepared 2 weeks ahead of time. The weekend after that, there will be no Sunday Pub, or at least not hosted by me.
Everyone go to Raph's channel for the Nicola Griffith interview.
There you go. Perfect.
That would be so awesome, because I would feel so ashamed if I get like an author like that on a live stream and no one shows up.
Yeah, everybody storm Raph's channel in 2 weeks.
In the best way.
Yeah.
Don't
Positive storm his channel. On my channel, I will have my monthly review, monthly wrap-up, update, whatever, for November up tomorrow afternoon, probably. It's been really challenging getting it done. Being sick and shooting it 2.5 times and editing it more than once, and it's just a pain in the ass. But it's basically done. Otherwise, I am continuing with Fellowship of the Ring. I'll have another vlog up. It is. Although it takes a fuck of a long time to get out of the Shire. Man, I was actually surprised.
Yeah, Tolkien likes to mosey around.
Somehow I didn't have that in my head, but it takes like 250 pages to get out of the fucking Shire. Jesus, Tolkien.
Well,
dude, you got to savor all the foxes, man.
I know. I actually have been savoring, but I was just like, wow, they're still in the Shire. This is crazy. So I'll have another vlog coming up soon. And it has, as always, been an honor and a pleasure to share the Sunday Pub with you all. Yeah. See you next week.
All right.
Bye, everyone.
Until next time.
Bye.